All that they do is for the empire, in order to get rid of its enemies, who pose a threat to the emperor and his people. For the Imperial Guard, there is no other reason to exist, and they deliver judgment swiftly, without prejudice or remorse. The emperor is impressed by the skill he has shown and applauds the guard as he bows. This Earth saw an extremely swift development of technology in its future, but it was not the hope many believed it would be. Due to the unending war on resources, the Earth continued to be destroyed, and thus, humanity reached for the stars, in order to conquer other planets. In the end, life on Earth ended because of an invasion by an unknown alien species. The survivors wandered aimlessly through space for a long time, but they fortunately found a planet very similar to Earth. As a collective, humanity decided to call this new planet Novus, which means new home. They sent out these coordinates to all of the human ships. And so, all the humans who have been scattered around the galaxy united and formed factions within this new society. First is the Balado Federation, where numerous alien species are mixed among humans. Second is the Accretion Empire. They possess an army of machinated soldiers who serve and obey. The last ones are the Holy Crowrite Empire. Its priests can use force energy and possess high mental fortitude. However, even after all that's happened, these three factions vied for the limited resources on Novus, and as a result, humanity once again is preparing for a war on resources, which might be their last, but if it's not, the next one will be fought with stones and sticks. At the Accretion Empire Machination Lab, Commander Hemilis Castoria tells a young boy that he's next, although he will be compared a lot to the one that came before him. This is where he is to show his king what he is capable of, so he should not forget that this is a very important day for him, and for all other trainees. Luca, an Imperial Guard trainee, suggests you wait and see who the unlucky one is. Hemilis likes this attitude, and hopes he lives up to it. As Luca gears up, he thinks that he must at least be capable of dodging and blocking bullets. It's the most necessary skill in order to become an official Imperial Guard. He has completed all the simulation training, at the highest difficulties. He is a soldier that is training for the Imperial Guards, who has heightened spatial awareness thanks to a procedure that upgraded his perception. His opponents stand before him as he enters. 5 death row inmates with very cheap equipment. Lucas slowly draws his blade, and thinks that this will not take him longer than 10 seconds. With that, he charges in, cutting the head of one inmate before he could even get a shot in. The others naturally turn to him, but Luca does not move. This is an opportunity for him to make a good impression on the Emperor. He must do something noteworthy to, well, be of note. He wonders if he can do what he's thinking of doing, as he has never done it before, but he must do it now. As he heightens his senses to the limit, he can feel the sweat coming off the inmates. He can feel their irregular heartbeats, afraid of what he will do next. Luca's mind only becomes focused on his senses, and as soon as the inmates shoot, he deflects all their bullets back at them, impressing Hemilis and the Emperor too. With this successfully done, he breathes a sigh of relief, although it has taken a toll on his body. However, this is a necessary sacrifice, as it has increased his value. After he exits the showing area, Hemilis says that he did not expect to see him use ballistic trajectory control, as it's not even in the curriculum yet. Luca tells him that he just copied the guy who came before him, but Hemilis says that it doesn't matter. That guy is from a renowned household. He was already taught that curriculum, so he's different from an orphan like him. He is growing to like him, because he certainly has a gift. Before Luca can wonder what he means, Hemilis reaches into his eye socket and, to the dismay of the others around him, pulls his eye out. Hemilis is even more excited, because Luca is not even fazed by the pain. He must have done some great pain tolerance training. That's why he likes him. Luca is glad to hear that. This eye he was going to take out anyway, and would like to request an eye that can predict trajectories. After everything is said and done, another trainee by the name of Ile comes into Luca's door, because he wants to talk, but seeing as he's half naked, perhaps it was too sudden. Luca tells him to come in as he dresses. So Ile sits on the same bed as him, and explains that he was impressed with his performance. Luca tells him that he's in the wrong place if he wishes to exchange praise, calling him young master. He knows about this guy, Ile Karthika. Just with his aura alone, one could tell that he's from the famous Karthika household. If he's logical about this, there's no need to be aggressive to someone from a noble household. One could just say that he's envious, but perhaps it's his tiredness too. Ile hands him a pill. He came to specifically give him this. It will decrease his sensitivity, so he can rest better at night. Lucas says that he doesn't need it, but Ile tells him to take it away, as he will not be able to train properly tomorrow if he doesn't get a good rest. He should know that mental fortitude cannot carry him through everything, although it can do most things. Luca takes the pill, and immediately feels that it's not some knockoff from the slums. It's a genuine pill. Luca also praises his abilities. He just copied what he did after all. Ile explains that he has a mechanical eye for combat, so it wasn't hard for him. He was actually more impressive since he went on with just his instincts. The commander also seemed to acknowledge him as an irregular too. That's why he's giving him a mechanical eye from his own pocket. Luca says that it's just his hard work that he put in. Nobility is excellent, while the lower classes are trash after all. He cannot let go of a rare opportunity like this as a lower-class citizen. Ile stays silent for a bit, but then repeats the nobility's excellence part. He did pass the selection process, but he knows that there are many others who failed it, right? He also thinks that there's people who paid money to manipulate results. Luca wonders if that's possible, and while there's no proof, Ile strongly believes that it is. Those like him without support have never failed the cultivation process, because they all rose up with only their skills. Luca has never expected to see a noble say that not all nobles are excellent, but what is he trying to say here? Ile forwards a handshake, and tells him that people like him are the ones who should succeed the most. He will be cheering him on from now on. Luca accepts his handshake, but he already planned on victory. This is all for the Empire after all. Ile looks at him with a certain kind of sadness as he says this. This is a story about a boy who is only raised to be used as a weapon in the tyrannical empire known as Acretia. The next day, the trainees are all at the shooting range, and Luca, using his new eye, lands all of his shots cleanly. He pulls the training doll closer, showing that all of his shots were centered. Eli is impressed by this. He's not the top student for nothing after all. He also asks if he has grown accustomed to his right eye, and also asks if it's not unfair to be this good with a gun when he's a close combat fighter. Luca says that members of the guard must be good with all types of weapons. Additionally, he does not want to hear this from someone who managed to shoot every shot through the same hole. Ile laughs it off, as guns are his specialty, but Luca tells him to not be so nonchalant, as he will surpass him soon. Ile will welcome it when and if it happens, just like he told him before. He will root for him. The Empire needs more people like him after all. The value of talent and ability is slowly being diluted in their empire. As long as one has status and power, even the worst shots in history can become expert marksmen. However, if more naturally talented people like him appear, people will be able to tell between talent and no talent. Luca tells him that this sounds like he is criticizing the Empire's systems. If he were to report what he said to HQ, he would not get off scot-free, even if he is a Karthika. Ile gives him a smile and says that if he's willing to do that, he wouldn't have told him about it. He's aware that he's a good person. He thanks Luca for worrying about him so much, who only finds him annoying. 2 years into the training, in the third quarter, every trainee is put in a wagon-like vehicle and dragged to the battlefield. Camillus tells them that Luca and LA will act as platoon leaders. If any trainee has an issue with that, they can stand up and leave right now. Since nobody does so, he continues with his explanation. Across the gorge they are at now, there's a Korite outpost, illegally stationed in their territory. This training is to test how they will perform in the field, and since they have no need for prisoners, they are allowed to kill on sight. Everyone does so, but Ile is quite amazed that they are on their first real mission. Luca wonders why he's so nervous. They have all killed before after all. Ile understands, but this is different, as it's the first time they are facing an outside threat. Every faction on this planet, including theirs, have planet's Earth humanity as their ancestors, so it sort of feels wrong. Luca tells him that his emotions will only get in the way, and he should look behind them too. Does he think that the senior guard will protect them? This is a full-body mechanical armor, Class Legion. Those guys are here to supervise them. They might even just outright kill them if they try to take prisoners. He agrees that the idiots who are not aware of their place do not belong here. On this planet, other outside threats are like bugs for the Empire. They have learned that they all use and deceive the Empire for their own selfish gain. Ile knows that's what they have been taught after all. It doesn't take long for the base to be turned into a graveyard for those within. The Empire soldiers ruthlessly killing defenseless people without remorse. Luca walks through the chaos and doesn't see a single weapon among the Korans, meaning that this training will end without a hitch. He soon stumbles upon a lone child, who cries for his mother helplessly. Luca sees something of himself in that child, who is so scared that he can no longer move. He is a non-combatant, offering no resistance, and he also doesn't have a gun to end his suffering cleanly. However, even if he pities him, he got his orders to kill without prejudice. He will no longer hesitate. He will not let the seed of those who leech off of them prosper. He punches the wall with his blade, but cannot let himself hit the child. He crouches down and tells him to pretend that he's dead. He might be able to survive if he does so. Lucas shouldn't do this. If the headquarters were to find out, something horrible will happen to him. As he leaves, he wonders if he should go back and finish the job, but that's when someone does it for him. There's a sharpshooter above, Ile, who understands him, but this is not the way. Luca's heart freezes as he realizes what he had done. If someone else was watching, he's screwed, but he can trust Ile, as he will not report it. Even so, he must keep an eye on him, even if he's a friend. Fortunately, or unfortunately, he will not have to keep an eye on him, as he is blasted by a beam of energy. And before Luca can react, a force user appears next to him, telling them to go to hell. Luca connects the dots. This bastard created that explosion, and if he has no weapons on him, that can only mean one thing. Another trainee appears, and is now attacking him from behind. But without even looking, the force user blasts him apart. Luca now knows that this is a force user, whose soul is wretched with pain, as this was not a base, but a settlement. They killed people who were doing their best to live. Luca wonders if the captain knew about this as they regrouped. If he would have told them in advance, they would have been more careful. Luca can react to his explosions because of his advancements, and can see that the force user is pushing himself too. He would like to do a battle of attrition, even if his body will be the one to collapse if he keeps maintaining the high-speed maneuver. He needs to attack while he's still in this state, and move even faster, to the point that he can dodge point-blank attacks. Luca knows that his hesitation caused Ile to be in this state. He has learned countless times about the force users. He will do whatever it takes to make up for this mistake. Before he charged in, he ordered the others to disperse and take care of the stragglers. The force user immediately acts surprised and charges his power. Luca, knowing that he was acting as bait for the others to get away, in order for someone to use the force, they must perform a preparatory action. For example, it would be the hand signs this guy is making. As long as he can disrupt that space, he can kill him. Luca successfully does just that. But the force user manages to use his other hand to strike, almost eliminating Luca in a single shot. However, as soon as the force user sees that Luca is just a child, he cannot bring himself to do it, which allows Luca to dig his sword deeper and kill the man. Luca catches his breath, knowing that if that man went through with his strike, he would have been dead now. Koride is made up of fanatics that are beyond human comprehension. Why did he refuse to kill him? Luca realizes why they are told to not let their emotions consume them, why this is all for the Empire, and why they are taught that everyone else is a hive of worms. The Imperial Guards exist only to protect the Empire and its Emperor. But now, through the screams of pain and the smell of smoke, Luca questions everything he has been taught. After the mission was over, the injured trainees went to the recovery room, where now, Ile asks Luca how it felt to almost die. He could ask him the same thing, as he was basically cut in halves. Ile laughs it off and says that this time, he got new arms and legs. How much did he change? Luca explains that his back was destroyed, so he got some titanium bones and artificial skin. They are both going to end up with entirely new bodies anyways, so they might as well get them early. Ile stays silent for a moment, and then tells Luca that the commander probably knew of the force user. The reason they did not hear a thing about it was because of the test. Luca noticed too, but since their seniors did not step in, they probably figured the trainees could handle it, as nobody was killed in action. Ile finds it weird that he and the other trainee who got blasted survived the attacks. It happened twice, so is it really a coincidence? Perhaps that force user never intended to kill them. Luca remembers his face, and the thoughts that accompanied it, but he refuses to let them fester. He is a soldier. Letting him live was a mistake on that man's part. That utterly pathetic mercy is the reason why the Koran will soon sniffle out. He will certainly regret his decision, as he sees and butchers conmats from hell. Ile suddenly breaks him out of his thoughts by asking why he closed the eyes of that Korean girl, who is already dead. You would really like to know. Luca turns around and tells him that he talks more. Did he get a new tongue with those upgrades? That was simply a mistake, one which will never happen again. With this training, the trainees have completed 2 of the 4 years of training they must do. They are now seniors, so they should be models for the new recruits, especially Luca and Ile, who are still top 1 and 2, respectively. The examiner sees potential in them. They can even be centurions, so they should keep training diligently, for the glory and protection for their empire and its emperor. They both agree, while Luca thinks of the centurion. The Imperial Guard is organized simply. There are 1,000 guardsmen, consisting of 10 centuries, all commanded by a chief centurion. The commander of the guards is also the centurion of the 1st century. Cadets like Luca, after finishing the full body mechanization, are assigned the lowest ranking century, the 10th century. If he becomes a centurion of the 10th century, he will make it really big. He and Ile go to spar with Ile pushing even harder than before, and fighting with more fierceness. Luca notices this too, and chalks it up to his new arm. However, a fight is still a fight, and those with more knowledge and experience always win. Luca stops his punch before hitting Ile, marking their 124th round, and his 124th win. They go to the rooftop after this. Ile actually believed that he would win. Luca tells him that if getting new parts was all they need to get strong, training would have been worthless. Ile has noticed that he's become more rigid after the examiner's speech. It seems like the idea of centurion impacted him quite a bit. Luca says that it's only natural. If he has experience serving as an imperial guard, he would be welcomed anywhere. Ile tells him to relax. He's in a position where his birthplace no longer matters. Luca glances at him and says that unlike him and most people, he has no place to return to. He must keep climbing and climbing, or it's wraps for him. He also has tremendous talent, but he lacks drive. Why does he want to be a guardsman anyhow? Ile has heard that many times before, and now from him as well. In truth, he wanted to be a scholar, an archaeologist more specifically. He wanted to study the ancient arcane civilization. Luca asks why he doesn't do that then, but Ile explains that it's banned for someone to study the arcane civilization. Besides, his house has already produced more than few generals. They would never allow him to be anything else at this point. Luca asks if he's really saying that he's sad, because he's not getting what he wants. He's acting quite spoiled here. There are countless in the slums who are not guaranteed another day of life. Plenty are already thankful they have enough to eat. Ile thought he would say that, but he was just sharing a secret with a friend. Luca says that others may interpret this as criticism of the Empire, and if they report it, things will be bad for him. Ile knows that he won't do that, because he's kept his secret too. Luca excuses his behavior. He hesitated only because his opponent was not a combatant. Even if it was not for him, he decided to go back and kill him already. He is loyal to the Empire, and the Emperor, for allowing him to show his talents. The enemies of the Empire are his enemies too, and his as well, no matter what he thinks. Ile smirks and calls him a liar. If his trust of the Empire surpassed simple loyalty, he would have killed him already. He really shouldn't push himself too hard, as it's not healthy. Luca calls him an idiot, who will die if he keeps this up. In the third year, they go on a reconnaissance mission, in an uninhabited neutral zone. There, they find an arcane site, which still has energy, despite being millions of years old. Ile is fascinated, and asks Luca if this is not cool. It's proof that there were civilizations which explored the stars before they even existed. Luca has drawn a line, but Ile does not seem to hesitate to cross his. He couldn't care less about them, as this mission is part of their training. If they meet another force here, they are going to fight. Simple as. Ile also doesn't care about that. Even if they are unbeatable, someone from the guard will help them. Someone speaks from behind, saying that the present exists because of the past, and that record allows them to predict what will occur in the future. If he thinks about it like this, it makes sense that so many are interested in history. This is another guard trainee, Claude Ramones. Luca knows his family. It's not as big as the Carthicus, but it's still respected. He wants to ask one thing about Luca, as he's quite fond of him, and wants to know if he's seeing anyone. Luca immediately puts up his defenses and tells him not to come any further. Claude tells him to relax. He asks this because he wants to introduce him to his sister. Luca says that he's an orphan from an orphanage, but Claude says that it doesn't matter, as he will probably end up his superior anyway. He should think about it, as his sister is quite pretty. Ile plays around with him, saying that he's quite popular with the ladies. Suddenly they both sense something, and they all get into position. They got a biological response from the front, so Luca orders the others to go and spread out while he and Luca man the front. Luca sees something up ahead, but he can't quite pinpoint it. However, after staring for a while longer, he sees that the being in front of them is a Korite paladin. He seems to notice them too, and readies a spear to throw. Luca can only scream at Claude to run, but it's already too late, as the spear is lunged forwards by the paladin, completely eradicating Claude. He could do nothing to react. These paladins are above mere force users. They are a threat that they cannot comprehend currently. The spear came from the arcane site, and before Luca knew it, the guy in front of him was gone. The same guy that was cheerfully talking to him just a few moments ago is now missing his upper body, and his robotic legs are trying to figure out what to do. Luca tries to use his mechanical eye to calculate the trajectory of the next attack, but it's giving him an error, as even it cannot possibly predict this opponent. The other trainees start shooting from behind, and Ile tells Luca to get a hold of himself. If he just stands there, he will die. They must fight in order to stall. Luca knows that he's right. Even if they would try to run, they would not be able to escape the situation. All they can do is fight, until the Imperial Guard gets here. If they manage to hold out for 10 or maybe 20 seconds, he is sure that a member of the Imperial Guard will appear. The paladin pulls out another spear and lunges it at Luca, making him realize that holding out for a dozen seconds is not possible. The spear breaks his helmet and cuts his cheeks. He doesn't even have time to catch his breath, as another spear comes flying towards him from behind, and when he sees it, he is faced with the ugly head of death once again. His mind falters, believing that he cannot fight against this beast, but that's when he remembers the commander's words. He saw that he looked like a little piggy, who just realized that it's about to be slaughtered, and warned him. If he dared to turn his back on any enemy, he would receive a bullet to the head, and that goes for everyone. If their enemy swings their blade, they shall do the same, only harder. Those of the Imperial Guard are not weaklings, but the soldiers of the Emperor. 3 seconds have passed, and Luca decides to move. Before he's completely annihilated, he uses all of his might to strike the spear, which has broken its speed, but it still comes flying at him, and creates a large dust cloud at the explosion site. A part of it frolics in the air before landing down. Luca has survived, although he can no longer use his attacking hand. He knows that the paladin isn't about to just stop attacking, and sure enough, as the seconds count down, the paladin unleashes mighty strikes with his blade, cutting Luca's right hand off, but also cutting up the people behind him, including Ile. Due to how many are injured behind him, Luca can guess that the paladin wasn't actually aiming at him, but now he's actually doing just that, about to unleash even more power, causing Luca to fall into utter despair. However, he remembers who he is 12 seconds in, and even in his sad state, charges in, feeling only rage for his enemy. Far away, an Imperial Guard uses his boosters to fly towards their area, and even uses the additional ones to gain more speed. He treks the forest with no issue, and arrives just when the Paladin and Luca are about to crash. He is not going to let a prospect of the Imperial Guard die, so he grabs the Paladin's head, and using the momentum he has, plunks him into the ground. He is not done yet, as he pushes the boosters even farther and pulls out his gun while dragging the Paladin to the ancient site. When they arrive, the Imperial Guard plunges the Paladin straight into the site, making it glow, and bringing Luca to awe. The Imperial Guard returns from his conquests, proving what the Empire is capable of. Luca is very glad to be saved, but this has not ended just yet. Even in his battered state, the Paladin does not give up, and summons all of the strength he can muster. The Imperial Guard has noticed his adamancy. He wishes to suffer, so he will fulfill that request with the best weapon at his disposal. Luca recognizes that weapon. It's a part of the Legion set. He has always wondered who is stronger, an Imperial Guard, or a Paladin capable of using the Force. With this battle, he will have his question answered. They both strike at each other's blades, the Imperial Guard pushing harder, because he knows that the Paladin is weakened. However, he soon disproves that, as he pushes the Imperial Guard back, and they begin unleashing a flurry of blows while in the air. Before landing and creating a big explosion, they soon return to where they came from, fighting at the exact same speed. Luca is amazed. He cannot hope to even track these guys. That's how fast they are. He can see, this is how a true Imperial Guard fights. Even if he believes in him, he can only hope that he actually wins. The Imperial Guard pushes his blade too far, allowing the Paladin to counterattack and break it. But this also allows the Imperial Guard to grab his head, and push the Paladin to his doom. Using the last of his strength, the Paladin comes to a stop and uses the Force to grab the spear that is behind Luca. At that moment, Luca had only one thought in mind. The Imperial Guard will be unable to dodge the spear because he had never experienced it before like he has. He knows that he will die if the Imperial Guard does, so he must do something. Before the spear flies away, Luca puts his foot in its trajectory. He hopes that this is enough to make it miss, and as it closes in on the Imperial Guard, it goes past him, and the Paladin grabs it. Since he has it in his hands, he charges it up with tremendous force. The Imperial Guard, realizing what he is doing, he will not let him do as he pleases, so he charges up a punch and pummels the Paladin into the ground, creating a large explosion, and ending the fight. Luca can only wonder what happened and who survived, because he can no longer move, but he hopes that the Imperial Guard is the one that's coming to him right now. Sure enough, it is. The Imperial Guard recognizes his achievement. He couldn't have killed that bastard without him. He also inquires about his wounds, more specifically on his abdomen. Luca tells him that he got hurt when he tried to dodge his Force slash. The Imperial Guard extends a hand to grab him, as he will assist him in returning to the base. That's when Luca sees something which shocks him. Legion. The full-body mechanical armor of the Empire is only bestowed to the Imperial Guards. They remove all of the flesh as it is weak, and in its place they put machinery, which makes the Imperial Guard become the ultimate weapon. Every trainee dreams of receiving a Legion, as it is a testament to their hard work, and also the Imperial Guard. However, what Luca is seeing now shocks him, as this Imperial Guard's head is missing. Luca asks, he is alive with no brain. Is he a human, or has he fully become a machine? This makes the Imperial Guard realize that his head and brain is gone. He screams out in the pain he should have felt up until now, and falls to the ground, lifeless. Luca finally realizes his mistake. He has been training, day in and day out, hoping to become one of these beasts. His body is becoming colder and colder. He also can't stop shaking, making him wonder if he can survive until help arrives. What he's seeing right now, this grotesque rejection of humanity, might be the last thing he sees. Ile asks if he's still alive, and Luca also asks the same. Ile says that he's not in the best condition, but he will survive. Luca asks about the others, but besides them, everyone is dead. Ile asks how his wounds are, and Luca doesn't sugarcoat it. He will die soon. He also asks what he's going to do now, as he should look ahead. The life he yearned for is right in front of him, within grasp. Ile doesn't get him. Forwards is the direction of the Empire. And Belado. Luca knows what he said. He cannot find what he wishes for within the Empire. He will be fine, so he should go. Reinforcements will get here soon, and once they meet them, they will have to return to the Empire once again, which he can figure out he hates. With this encouragement, Ile stands up and leaves. He comes from a background that is guaranteed wealth and fame, along with tremendous ability. Any Empire citizen would be jealous of him, so that's why he can't understand him. However, when he was talking about his dreams, that was the brightest he saw and smile. He truly felt human at that moment. With this in mind, he hopes that he lives how he wants, and is happy too, because he will not find it here. Subtly, Luca feels a press on his abdomen, which is from Ile, who is not left. Seeing how he acted made him worried that he would die, and he cannot live guilt-free if he lets him rot here. Luca sighs as the Empire ship arrives. He truly is an idiot. After this whole situation, Luca receives new parts, but still looks at a catalog of parts, wondering which will make him less human. Ile arrives, excited to see that he's interested in something, and recommends the F-24 reuse model. It has short adaptation speed, allowing him to go on the battlefield sooner, and it's much better than what he's using now. Luca tells him to stop coming out of the shadows like that, if he doesn't want to get punched in the face. Ile apologizes for surprising him. He doesn't want a broken nose after all. After they returned to the Empire and Luca completed his treatment, he was called to different departments, in order to be investigated. They wanted to talk with him about what happened with the 3 cadets, and the Imperial Guard, which was killed. This incident is now called the Quran Paladin encounter, and now he thought that they wanted to investigate further, but it seems like he's called for another reason. Ile asks if he heard about the artifact they found at the site they went to. There are tons of arguments on who owns it now. Luca is already suspected as such. That damn cube is the reason behind all of this bullshit. He asks Ile who will retrieve it, and Ile tells him that they are assembling a team that only has specialists. If the Holy Alliance refuses to give both the historical site and the artifact, a huge war will likely occur. If the Empire were to battle against the Korra, the Balado would only profit by watching them fight. That is why so many small-scale battles were taking place, where they could tolerate the losses of men. Luca is not that interested in politics. He's a grunt. He takes his orders and fights. That is what a member of the Imperial Guard is supposed to do after all. This makes Luca think of the Imperial Guard that saved them, then of what the commander told him after he explained what happened. He said that it was a phantom phenomena, caused by residual signals. Luca wonders if that really is true, but it can't be, as the guard reacted to his words even after he died. That was no phantom phenomenon. This is a question that he still wants answered. However, the headquarters refused to give him an answer, and he's not dumb enough to look for information on his own. There is an extravagant location within the Empire training facilities of the cadets that doesn't really fit with the others. The visiting room is created for cadets to meet their friends and family. Luca thought he would never come here, since he is an orphan, but surprisingly enough, someone did come to look for him. Lillian Ramon's, Claude's sister. Luca can only wonder why she's here, perhaps to question him about Claude's death, since he was assigned leader. Lillian appeases his worries by saying that she's not here to hate him. The moment her brother became an Imperial Guard, their family was expecting news of this magnitude eventually. She actually wanted to see him, as her brother talked about him for quite a while. He said that he was talented amongst the other cadets, and asked if she was interested in meeting with her. Luca knows that she heard where he comes from, but Lillian actually prefers it that way. There are fewer formalities that they need to do because of it. Luca feels that it seems like she's interested in meeting him, which makes her ask if he's opposed to it. Luca is honest. He doesn't know anything about her, and why him anyway. Lillian tells him that they can get to know each other better, and the fact that her dead brother asked it should be enough, right? She also believes that he has a lot to benefit from this, which most people would accept in an instant. Luca understands it's an offer he has no reason to refuse, especially since she comes from a good background and everything. All that he did up until now was to succeed in life, so if he can get married to a noble woman, he would get closer to his goal. However, this seems far too easy. That is why he feels reluctant. It seems that she's hiding something, and that something is clawing at her back. Luca promptly refuses and says his farewells. He used to think that Ile was stupid for trying to escape from this empire, since he's from a noble house and all, but he never thought that he would also be dumb enough to make a decision based on his gut feeling. He is sure Lillian will take this as an insult to her nobility. He can only hope that nothing bad will happen from this. Instead of all that, she suddenly grabs his hand and apologizes for rushing him. They should just start with being friends first. Luca didn't mean it like that, but Lillian doesn't give him time enough to explain. As she sprints away, Luca looks at his hand and knows that she will be hard to get rid of. Next, Luca goes to the physical training room, where he meets with the fighting instructor of the Imperial Guards, Kinuan, who did not expect him to come here at all. Luca wants to learn from him, but Kinuan feels that there's not much he can teach him about fighting. He's already skilled. He only remembers a few actually surpassing his skills. This makes Luca believe that there are still people stronger than him, and he's not satisfied with being the best just among the cadets. Kinuan tells him to not rush so much. He is still young after all. Kinuan is not that strong, and also doesn't hold a domineering attitude like the other instructors. Also, unlike them, he uses a low power augment. Comparing it to the new augment he just got, Luca should be 10 times stronger. The only thing he has a disadvantage in is that he doesn't have a full body augmentation. If he cannot win against him, he will not stand against someone as strong as one of those paladins. He thanks Kinuan for the opportunity, who feels like he didn't have much of a choice. But it doesn't matter. He should come at him already. Luca does just that, and Kinuan easily deflects his punch. Seeing his new augment, which he probably wanted to test out, Luca knows that he's a retired Imperial Guard, but he also knew that he wouldn't flinch against a simple attack like this. He lets out a flurry of blows, forcing Kinuan into a defensive stance, and allowing him to try and finish this with a swift strike. Kinuan tries to defend himself, but Luca grabs his clothes and presses further, thinking that he is won. Unfortunately for him, Kinuan isn't an instructor for nothing, and within a second, puts Luca in the air. He is confused by this, but swiftly lands down and charges in, as he will not be stopped by just this. His kick flies through the air, but Kinuan grabs his leg and throws him in the air once again, making him land harshly. Luca just doesn't get what is going on, but Kinuan rips into him. Not only has he failed to gauge his opponent's strength, but he also dared to let his mind wander while in a fight. He should answer truthfully now. Why is he in such a rush for strength? Luca tries to figure out what just happened. From his point of view, his first attack should have hit Kinuan in the chin. However, as soon as Kinuan touched his arm, something happened. His body staggered somehow, like he lost control of it or something. Or to be exact, kinetic energy that was sent to Kinuan came back to him. He asks Kinuan what happened, and so he explains that it was just a self-defense method of his. Luca turns to him and asks if he could learn it, but only then sees the state that Kinuan is in. He probably doesn't want to learn since he saw him like this. There is always a price for shortcuts, and well, this is one of them. They both sit down, and Kinuan asks Luca what he learned from their fight. Luca explains that he felt charmed, like his body moved on its own, and was out of his control. Kinuan tells him the name of the combat method, Archi's Victima, or more commonly known as the Archi's combat method. Luca knows about it, but that's only used by low-level thugs. What he showed him was amazing. It could be considered something they could even learn as a military standard. Kinuan confirms that in the past, it was considered, but there are 3 major problems with this combat method. Luca knows that one of them is that it's hard to learn, which Kinuan confirms, and calls him smart for recognizing it. Now that he has figured out one, what are the rest? Luca figures that the user's brain must be affected somehow, since he started to bleed. Kinuan says that he is right again, but as for the third reason, he cannot know, not yet at least. Luca is willing to take these risks, if it means that he will get stronger. But Kinuan tells him that he's not the one who will decide that. He is already a pretty good asset to the Empire. Does he even realize just how much money has been spent on him? Luca tries to say something, but Kinuan wants a question answered before he does. Training the Archi's combat method will inevitably cause problems in the brain. Can he swear to him right now that he will stop using it when that happens? Luca knows that this man can smell liars, so he says that he cannot swear that, but he can promise to try his best not to use it. Kinuan likes his honesty, and suddenly trips in, making Luca fall on his back. From this moment forth, he should always expect an attack from Kinuan. This way, he will be ready for all situations. Luca knows that this means he agreed to train him, and Kinuan tells him to get up already. He likes fast learners. A month passes, and Ile wonders if Luca has had enough sleep, because his eyes are quite dark and digged into his skull. Luca writes this off as being busy, but he has been training with Kinuan daily. Instead of teaching him something directly, Kinuan wanted him to observe and learn on his own. The Archi's combat method is extremely different from what he had learned before. Most combat methods focus on learning a specific skill, and then honing it until mastery. The Archier's combat method, however, seeks to make the most out of all the skills that he has. It's a superior combat algorithm that uses all the weapons in one's arsenal to create the most efficient fighting method in seconds. Instead of an augment or training, It utilizes the brain's untapped potential. Luca asks Ile how his mission went. Who says that it is pretty boring. All they did was get rid of a malfunctioning droid. All the missions they have been receiving are something like this. Basically child's play. Luca suggests that the Korite must be careful because of the incident that happened last time. Is that why the chief Centurion hasn't been seen around as of late? Ile says that isn't it. He has heard some stuff from his family. Luca wonders if there's a rebellion or something at hand, which Ile confirms. He doesn't know any details, but a group has begun plotting their rebellion within the Empire. Luca takes in this information, just when they are about to start a war with the Korites. Some dumbasses are thinking of rebelling. How stupid of them. Ile suggests he doesn't disregard their idea of stupidity. He will rot from the inside if he does. Luca instantly pins him and prepares a strike. He is warned him countless fucking times. He can overlook his wanting to leave the Empire, but if he becomes an enemy, he will not leave him be until he rips his head off. Ile explains that he passed the aptitude test for the Imperial Guard too. He just thought that the notion would be more important for the Empire. He should calm down already. Luca tells him to not make such statements anywhere else. He does not want to see his name on a rebel list or something. Ile knows. He can only speak of these things in front of him. Luca is still a bit mad, but Ile tells him to lighten up. He will treat him to some food this weekend. Luca already has plans for the weekend, and also tells Ile to stop talking, as he's irritating enough already. Ile wonders if it's a girl he's going to meet, but Luca is just waiting for him to leave. The next day Luca goes outside and into the lower sector, where he walks with Kinuan. Has it not been some time since they both have been here? For people like them, who are from the slums, this is a familiar place. Luca says that the moment he became a trainee, he thought that he would never come back here again. He did not want to breathe the same air as these degenerates. Kinuan can see that. He's the type that climbs high after all. Luca certainly didn't expect Kinuan to bring him here, as the air of this place is bad. The city is powered by thermal energy from the magma which lies beneath, and all that unfiltered waste and heat is released into the lower sector. In his younger days, back when he was still breathing this air every day, he felt like he needed to get out, or he would stay a loser his entire life. He certainly doesn't like being here, as it brings some bad memories. Kinuan tells him to follow closer, and they soon arrive at a darker place than usual, which Luca believes is a black market. Kinuan asks if this is his first time here, and Luca explains that there were a few kids that came to this place and never came back, so he wasn't stupid like then, and never came here. Luca is surprised by how much Kinuan knows of the lower sector's layout. Someone who has been an Imperial Guard for entire decades knows of this place better than he does. Kinuan also told him to use prosthetic arms and legs with low energy on this adventure of theirs, making him wonder what he is planning. Kinuan tells him to get ready, and they both walk to a guarded place. One of the guards tells him to stop, as the spectator wall is on another entrance, but Kinuan explains that he wants to meet the supervisor of this fine establishment. The guard asks how he knows their boss, Aleph, but Kinuan doesn't. He just really wants to meet him. The guard immediately pulls a gun on him, but he can't even get a shot in, as he gets tripped by Luca and put to the ground. Before the other guard can pull out his gun, Luca points the gun he took from the guard and tells him not to move. Kinuan is glad that at least one of them understands. Could he bring Aleph down right now? Their guns are dropped on the ground, and the guards walk with shame through the staff-only door. Luca asks Kinuan what he would have done if he was not fast enough, but Kinuan would have just searched for another way in. Luca inquires about this place, and why it's so important to them. Kinuan tells him that this is the most frequented place in the entire empire. It's the Colosseum. Kinuan and Luca eventually get their wish, and meet up with Aleph, who doesn't seem that happy to see them. Kinuan tells him to put Luca in a match. He doesn't care about the winnings, and also couldn't care less if he dies. Luca now understands why Kinuan told him to bring low-output body parts. Aleph takes the last puff of his cigar and throws it at Kinuan, who allows Luca to catch it for him. Aleph and his guards point their guns at the two, and Aleph tells Kinuan that he's a little confused. They did not let them in because they wanted to grant their little wish. They just wanted to dispose of the body easily, without much cleanup. Luca knows that this is a bluff. If this was his intention from the start, he would have already shot it then. He analyzes this situation. There are 3 common pistols aiming at him, and another 2 guards outside of the room, also brandishing pistols. He simulates what he would do in case of attack. First, he would kick the table in front of Aleph, allowing him enough time to kick his face in. His guards would naturally get flustered and swiftly aim at him, but since he would have Aleph hostage, they won't be able to do much. He would then use Aleph's pistol to shoot them. The outside guards would come in upon hearing all this commotion, but he would already be above them, and end their lives easily. With this, the simulation ends, just as Kinuan asks what happened to the previous owner. Aleph is surprised that he knew Torah. That bastard died. He got caught rigging some matches. Kinuan can tell that he killed In and took over the business, which is quite profitable. They were friends, but he will not fault In for what he did, as Tora also did the same thing to get in this position. It's a natural occurrence around these dark places. Aleph comes closer and points his gun at him, asking how the hell he even knows all of this. Kinuan advises him to calm down. He wouldn't want to end up where Tora is right now, right? This spooks Aleph enough that he backs away, then asks if all that he needs to do is put that kid in a match. He analyzes In, seeing that his arms and legs are not combat models, and that his body is mostly organic. He would get crushed into a pulp the moment he walked into the arena. Aleph agrees to put him into a match, but he should offer something in return, right? Kinuan says that he knows where Tora kept his safes. He has his eye, does he not? Aleph is quite amazed by how much he knows, to the point where he's curious about his identity. Kinuan suggests he thinks of him as a ghost of the past. Aleph offers him some women and booze in the VIP seat while he watches, but Kinuan only wants the booze. He also mentions that this kid doesn't need special treatment. He should pair him up with his best fighters. Luca thinks that he has much to learn from this man. He took control of the situation by only moving his mouth. He has what he severely lacks. In the waiting room of the Coliseum, Kinuan immediately rips the camera up, and Luca asks what is in Tora's safe, because Aleph seems to really want it. Kinuan tells him that it's a treasure that's enough to change his life. Luca wonders what he would have done if a fight broke out, which Kinuan knew he would be interested about, but he will tell him after he wins. His opponent is this guy, Gabriel, the so-called Steel Fist. As Luca stares at his picture, Kinuan explains that the Coliseum is filled to the brim with idiots who use illegal mods, at the cost of their already short lifespan. He is likely the type who does not worry about his future. He should remember these words, which are the fundamentals of the Orki's combat method, to be satisfied with what he has. Luca disagrees, being satisfied means losing, but Kinuan tells him that water does not lose, it just changes form. He has potential, as he has been watching him ever since he deflected those bullets. He was surprised when he came to him for training. As a man of talent, however, he really came to the right person. Luca feels that this praise he's receiving is unfounded, but Kinuan believes he deserves this much. This might be the last time they see each other after all. Luca gives him a lukewarm smile, as he knows what he means. The match soon begins, and the presenter starts to talk about Luca, as this is his first match. Yet he dares to challenge Gabriel. He's still a brat who dreams big, and his name is Good Boy. Luca doesn't like that shitty name, but he won't complain now. The spectators begin to talk trash, saying that he only came here to end his life. Some want to see him get slaughtered, and some are simply here to enjoy seeing the life getting snuffed out of his eyes. Luca knows what this is. It's the dark desire all humans have to see others suffer. These fuckers must really like seeing limbs being torn off, which is good. Very good, in fact. He can sense that he's finally back home, and can unleash his true potential. As a child, Luca doesn't remember ever being full. An official from the Empire would stop by and send supplies twice a month, but the principal of the orphanage would sell more than half of that, to line his own pockets with dirty cash. So to the kids of the orphanage, starvation was something they just had to live with. However, even when starving, Luca never stopped working out. He read every book that was filled with dust from disuse, and lifted chunks of iron to strengthen his muscles. The other kids took him for a dumbass. Why was he training when he was just going to get hungrier? Luca's thoughts were simple. He can get more with his power if he is hungry. The rule of the strong eating the weak was instilled into Luca's young mind pretty easily. It's only natural for the strong to be full, and for the weak to starve. The disdain his fellow orphans felt turned into anger. He was a double-digit kid just like them. Even if he bullies them, he will never get out of this, because he's a lower-floor rat at the end of the day. Luca did not care for the cries of sore losers. At the age of 12, he received the second aptitude test, and got his name on the list of potential Imperial Guard trainees. 3 years later, he officially became a trainee. Those bastards from the lower levels can't even begin to fathom the life he lives. He hoped that he would never meet those losers again, and so he forgot about this place. Returning to this place came as a surprise for him. But enough of that now. He has a brute to take down after all. Gabriel can't believe he got matched against a brat. Aleph must have been smoking some nasty stuff to come up with this, but he doesn't care as long as he gets paid. Luca begins analyzing him, and sees that his limbs are all from different manufacturers, and he has disregarded the symmetry and balance that is recommended. His spine has become curved from the sheer load of his modifications, and the parts of his flesh that are in contact with the metal suffer from inflammation. He probably can't fall asleep without some high-quality painkillers. He cannot deny, however, that this guy is powerful. He modified his body for the sole purpose of strength. Upon a closer look, Gabriel sees that he doesn't have a bad face, so he should serve him for a night. Luca understands. It is true that he will need a servant from now on, because he will become crippled from today onwards. Gabriel becomes enraged at this provocation and tells Luca that he will bash his body into the ground until he begs to become his servant. Aleph comes on the mic, telling everyone that this miniature version of a real fight is about to begin. Will this boy survive, or will he be crushed by Gabriel? Luca knows he's at a disadvantage since he's using non-combat parts against someone who only has combat once. This basically means that he will die if he gets hit even once, so he plans not to do that. He dodges Gabriel's first attack and hits him squarely in the face with his foot. However, this hasn't even tickled Gabriel, but Luca knows, if that hit was done with his normal parts, this bastard's head would have popped like a cherry. He backs away, but notices how cramped the stadium is, meaning he cannot keep running. All of Gabriel's attacks are lethal, and he does no damage. Even the audience is not on his side, since they are screaming bloody murder at him. This is the situation he is currently in, making him wonder what Kinuin wanted from him, since he was the one who brought him here. He remembers what he said, to be satisfied with what he has. Wishing for something he can't get now is wasted time. Praying that a gun will drop from the sky is the same. No matter how little he has, he must fight. Kinuin took his top-shelf limbs away but left his eyes. This means that he doesn't expect him to overpower Gabriel but rather outsmart him. He finally seems to understand what acceptance truly means. Orki's combat is about using what one has to its full potential. Gabriel's fists are destructive drills. The small tremors in his shoulders are the triggers, and the direction of his gaze is where he aims, with the length of his arm being the range. It is quite slow compared to a real gun, and its trajectory, well, it's really quite obvious. Kinuin looks at him in shock, and sees the genius in him. He has already experienced Akri's combat with his own talent, so he wants to see even more of his potential, until he becomes a god of war. Gabriel tries his best to hit him, and the audience is very mad that there's no bloodshed, but Luca is locked in. His concentration is better than ever, and he can now fully predict Gabriel's attacks. Perhaps he can even do what Kinuin did to him. He attempts it with Gabriel's next attack, and actually succeeds, allowing him to land a nice kick on him. Luca is actually getting excited now. This is how Kinuin was seeing him when they first fought. Gabriel doesn't know what trickery he used, but it ends here. His feeble attacks will not work on overwhelming power. This next attack does graze Luca, but he does dodge it. He knows that his attacks won't work against him, but since he lacks power, he will substitute it with something else. He turns around in the air as he grabs Gabriel's neck, who at this point can't do much, and subsequently gets his neck snapped. Luca can see the horror on the spectators' faces. Those who wish for his downfall can do so forever, because he will keep climbing, and their words shall never reach him. Luca knows that if this was a true battlefield, he wouldn't have been able to concentrate much, but because this was a controlled environment, he was able to take this guy down with relative ease. As he walks out, he abhors what he's thinking, but now that he has proven himself, Kinuin really is a great teacher. He congratulates Luca and welcomes him to his induction into Arki's Victima. Luca has realized that accepting the situation doesn't mean losing, it means adapting. Kinuin decides to give him something, credit chips, which makes Luca think this is the payout of the fight. Kinuin denies it. These are for Gabriel's hospital bills. He should go and give it to him, as it's not a bad idea to show generosity, as long as he doesn't get taken for a fool, that is. Luca doesn't care for this. He wants to be a soldier, not a charity worker. Kinuin pats him, and says that he's pretty naive with interpersonal relationships. But seriously now, the kindness he's talking about is basically an investment. He will build it up for the future, where he will be able to make use of it. Just like how today, he reaped what he sowed in Torah. He should not forget that creating advantageous environments for oneself is what makes a good soldier. Luca has misjudged him. He thought he was teaching him because he was impressed by his talent, and felt a connection since they were both gutter boys. But now he knows that one day, Kinuin will take what he invested in him. When that day comes, he simply cannot refuse. Gabriel's doctor analyzes him closely, and finds possible signal wavelengths that are too short to be compatible with his cyber body. His current being draws so much power that it will inevitably cause errors or freeze entirely, so he recommends using Xionix Corp's Hyperlindell number 9 instead. Hashtag, not sponsored. Gabriel can't afford the newest model. Is he trying to rip him off or something? Everyone around these parts seems to be doing well with shitty tech. The doctor informs him that those people do not have as many modifications as him. If he had at least considered the compatibility, an older model would have been perfect. Gabriel explains that he was poor. He just put on whatever he could get his hands on. The doctor tells him that he will buy his current limbs and attach new ones according to his budget. But combat models are a no-go. With his current budget, he can only afford used goods. Gabriel wants to snap at him, but then Luca enters the room, glad to see him as lively as in their match. Gabriel immediately becomes enraged upon seeing him and swears to kill him no matter what it costs. Luca comes closer. He has warned him before their fight that he was going to cripple him. He suddenly remembers what Kinnuan said, so he goes to the doctor and asks if they will be enough for that hyperlindel he was talking about. The doctor confirms it, but Gabriel asks what the hell he's doing. Lucas simply tells him that he's paying his bills, only because he feels like it though. Gabriel is shocked. His good boy stage name really fits, huh? He calms down a bit and asks for his real name. Luca tells him, so Gabriel vows to help him should he ever need his aid. He will repay him no matter what. This is a new feeling for Luca, but well, it really doesn't feel bad. Later he trains with Ile at the training grounds, but even though Ile is fast, Luca simply blocks his attack and ends the round with one punch. Ile still feels the pain minutes later. What he used must be the Arki's combat method Kinuan Do-Hin, right? Luca confirms it, but Ile thinks of it as thuggish. Stuff like holding glass shards between the fingers, or chucking dirt into the eyes. Luca knows how hard it is to believe, but that's what Kinuan told him it is. Ile can't even dream of beating him in a 1-versus-1 again, but Luca tells him to be proud. He's the only trainee who can even put up a fight. He thinks that the Colosseum experience was enough to shake the foundation of his ideas of combat. It's as if every technique he has practiced until now has been condensed into one small drop of knowledge. Ile sees how happy he looks and asks him to help him out, if he's not busy at least. They both go to the visiting room, where Luca is quite displeased to meet Ile and Lillian. Ile apologizes. Their families have always been on good terms, so he couldn't just refuse. Lillian believes she has applied for a visit numerous times already. Why is he ignoring her? Lucas says that he's just not interested. He hoped that she would see that as in refusing. Ile tells him to put it nicer, but Luca advises him to shut up. The situation alone is pissing him off pretty hard. Lillian starts to get peeved. Why does he hate her so much? Luca tells her that he has no time for a woman, unlike her. Someone like him who was an orphan has no way of climbing back up if he ever trips. Lillian says that being with her would be a benefit if that's the case, but she doesn't get it. If he were to rely on her noble power, it would also mean he could lose every single thing on her whim. He intends to be free and climb on his own merit. Lillian finds it strange that he says that, since he's close with Ile, but Luca tells her he only thinks of Ile as a friend and a trustworthy teammate. He doesn't hang out with him because of his status. Lillian understands. He doesn't plan on giving her a chance if what he says is true. Luca finishes his drink and gets up. Unfortunately, he hopes that they won't see each other again. As he walks through the corridors, Ile comes behind, saying that he shouldn't have been so rough. Luca tells him that she would have still clinged on if he wasn't, but Ile doesn't get it either. Couldn't he meet her a couple of times? Luca's reasoning is simple. He doesn't know why Lillian even likes him. She's approaching a gutter boy because her dead brother said nice things to her. She's surely plotting something. Ile understands. He's scared because there are variables, but if he takes it slow. Luca suddenly asks if he likes that girl, making Ile wonder what gave him such an idea with a broken tone. Luca could tell by his gaze and breath. It seems like Arki's victima is not just for combat. Anyway, if he's the one who likes her, you should cut all this crap and go for her. Ile would like to, but that's impossible for someone like him. Later, Luca goes to a construction factory and stands at the edge of the lava's hottest place with Kinuan. This is meditation training. He's meant to remain calm regardless of what he feels. He asks Kinuan how he would have won the fight that would have broken out in the gang office, but Kinuan already said he would tell him, only if he won, that is. Luca knew there were armed thugs inside and out. He did not see any way to get out unscathed without any weapon. What would he have done though? Sensing his curiosity, Kinuan says that he would have ducked under the table when the shooting started, leaving Luca puzzled. Halef and his men had guns. If his first move was hiding, he would lose any chance to counterattack. Kinuan knew he would look to take them down, even if he had to tank a few bullets or two. Luca asks what he would have done if he wasn't there or decided to hide. But Kinuan doesn't imagine that he wanted to take Halef hostage, right? He and the others have been trained for maximum aggressiveness, so it's only natural. However, if he did that, he would have been shot. It's not weird for gang bosses to change suddenly in those places. All he would have offered then was an opportunity to become bosses. Naturally, once he became the target, he would have taken those guys down and escaped through the secret passage. Luca is impressed. Not only did he predict his actions, but he even had a secret escape route in his mind. He cannot even fathom how far he thinks in such situations. Kinuan gets up and tells him that in a language long forgotten, Arki's means keen eye. Arki's victima uses all possible resources of the brain to amplify insight to the peak. He should remember that. It will be useful later. Luca gets up, thinking about the problem with one's brain being a side effect of pushing it to the limits. That's when he realizes. This means that if he equips a Legion suit, Arki's victima will no longer be available. Kinuan is impressed by his sharpness. He thought that it would take a couple of days for him to figure this out. Once one becomes an Imperial Guard, they will be given a Legion suit, but nobody can constantly wear it, as it's a full armor body created with the best technology. Thus it uses a huge bandwidth of memory signals. So on top of the CPUs that it comes with, all of the brain is used, and not a drop is left. This means that Arki's victima will be useless to him. Kinuan hid all of this while knowing how he would react. Luca blames himself, however. If he knew that it can't be used with Legion, he would have never learned it. He was dull. Kinuan sighs, and asks if this is really how it ends. Luca thanks him for his teachings up until now, but Kinuan only tells him to come back once he changes his mind. Eventually, he will. Luca goes to someone's office. It has been 3 months since they last saw each other. He's been pretty busy, so he hasn't had the chance to even come here. This is the chief centurion, Hylas Custoria. Luca guesses he was so busy because of the rebellion Ile told him about, but Hylas is more interested in him. How has he been doing? Luca explains that he has been training alone, as he has not been assigned on a mission for a while. Hylas tells him that he won't receive missions for some time. He's already good enough to act as a good tool for them. He has also heard something interesting, that he hangs out with Kinuan pretty often. Luca knows that the higher-ups have figured it out, from his visit to the black market, all the way to the Colosseum fight. They probably know everything. Hylas guessed that he was training to use Arki's victima, but he quit recently, right? Luca asks how he knows, but Hylas too knows that it cannot be used at the Legion. It would be meaningless for someone in the Imperial Guard. Kinuan is really a paradox. Those with no talent are thrown away by him, and those with talent soon realize that they have no use for his teachings. This is why Kinuan is the only one who uses Arki's victima in the Imperial Guard. Luca understands he wants him to continue learning that, right? More precisely, Hylas wants him to be on good terms with Kinuan, so he should continue learning for that exact purpose. This is an order, by the way. Luca's mind begins racing with ideas. So is he wary of Kinuan? Why is he so suspicious against a soldier retired from combat? These questions will remain his own. He will put his life at risk if he gets more details. Luca confirms that he will do just that, and Hylas is pleased. He will keep watching him closely, as he is the type that climbs high and doesn't stop. When Luca goes to Kinuan, he reveals that he did not expect him to return this swiftly, but he did tell him to come back any time, so asking questions really isn't useful here. Luca thanks him and thinks that he accepted him rather easily, which is suspicious. Luca asks why he's in the lower sector, but Kinuan is curious about these toys. Do kids still like such things? Luca explains that when he was younger, he would always stare at them, so Kinuan calls over the owner, as he wants everything on this side. Luca wonders why he's doing this, but he soon gets his answer as they arrive at the 47th orphanage. Kinuan tells him to put the box down in the inner field, then they will take a break. Suddenly, Gabriel screams at Luca from behind, asking what the meaning of this is. Why has he made him into a goddamn bellboy? Luca is confused. He was the one who said that he could ask for help at any time, and since they wouldn't deliver here, they had to use him. Gabriel wanted to help for something grander like taking down an entire gang or something. Luca says that he knows too. He doesn't need his help in a fight, considering their last spar. He takes a closer look at him. Seeing that his new spinal implant has improved his balance well, it seems like his cash did not go to waste. Gabriel asks who this man even is. If he's so infamous that even Aleph did not dare to stand up to him, he probably would have known of him by now. Luca tells him to keep his nose down. He really doesn't want to be associated with that guy. If he had to guess, Luca thinks that this is where Kinuan grew up. He's doing charity just because he made it out. The children immediately rush to the toys, calling Luca handsome while calling Gabriel ugly, who is surprised by how mean they are. Luca sees that 2 children are fighting over a specific toy, and sees himself in them. They should conquer with power. Nothing in this world is fair. They will get what they want only with power. Kinuan comes from behind and says that they should talk, somewhere quieter. When they arrive, he explains that he does things like this from time to time. The pay is not high here, so, looking at how chubby the principal of this orphanage is, they are smuggling supplies out pretty well. Luca asks if he grew up here, but Kinuan has forgotten his childhood. He just stops by nearby orphanages occasionally. At one point he might have even visited the one he grew up in. Who rightly knows? Luca looks at him, then thinks that he really looks like an ordinary retired soldier. The soldier who was not able to bathe in glory, with a nervous system that is barely working, because it was unable to withstand the overload on his brain. Perhaps this will be him in the future, but at the same time, he will be lucky to get to his age. Kinuan has rested enough, so he would like to get to the point. Who was the one who ordered him to come back to him? Perhaps it was Hylas. Luca stays stunned for a second before averting his eyes and asking what he means. He knows that he must stay composed. Kinuan will see if he's perturbed, so he should relax. But how did he know his orders came from Hylas? How much is this old man aware of already? If he really is hiding something so big that even a chief centurion is interested, then it would be better to just get rid of him now. Kinuan advises him to calm down. If he attacks him with all his strengths, it will be hard for him not to kill him. Luca says that he's a soldier of the Empire. He must do his duty. Kinuan laughs. He knows so little that he's not even sure which direction to go. He doesn't blame him, though. It's only natural for a soldier to follow orders from a higher up. He truly is the personification of the perfect little drone, something which the Empire yearns for constantly. When he first came to him, though, did he really think he did it of his own free will? The moment he performed projectile trajectory manipulation without an assistance processor, the higher-ups were already preparing his future. Finally, they thought, a person who could learn Arky's victim. He might have come to think that he came to him alone to get stronger after the Korra incident, but it was all thanks to the calculations made by the Empire. Fated then to meet. Luca refuses to be swayed by his words. He met a powerful foe in a mission, and realized he needed power. That is why he dug through the records and found someone to help him. All of this was because of his own free will, right? Kinuan tells him that no matter what, every man in this world is someone else's slave. They either know it, or they don't. He's probably running away from reality at this moment. He's still a young man after all, but he should head back now. If he wants to report all of this to Hylas, he should do so. Luca refuses to believe in his words. Although, as he said, Hylas wanted him to continue learning Ares' victim. His mind becomes jumbled with thoughts of doubt. He refuses them at every corner, but he eventually gives in. If even his desire to succeed wasn't his own, then what is he? The next day, he sits in the simulation training room, despairing that he could not tell Hylas about that day. If he did, they would have sent him to a psychological check, because of the possibility that he was infected with some type of dangerous ideology. With how confused his mind still is now, he would have shown a much lower score than before. The Empire does not forgive dangerous ideologies. In the worst-case scenario, they could dismiss his position as Imperial Guard and send him to the forced labor camps. Kinuan probably knew he would hesitate to talk if he wanted to report to Hylas now. He must prepare for the psychological exam. To do that, he needs someone in particular. Belay gets out of his simulatory training, which seems to have taken quite a toll on him, but suddenly a bottle is thrown at him, which his body catches first before his mind could. Luca is surprised he trains too. He's seeing him in a completely different light now. Belay says that losing to him constantly is not that pleasant, but did he come here to cheer him on? That's quite nice for him. Luca actually has a request, if that wasn't obvious enough already. He said previously that noble families mostly rig the aptitude tests, right? The Lay isn't surprised he knows. It's a well-known secret, though the unqualified never make it past training. Luca asks how he passed the psychological portion of the aptitude test. If he has a secret, he'll spill it now. LA notes that this is quite a dangerous thing to ask him, but Luca has already checked. There's nobody here, and he's also doing it for the Empire. LA won't ask because he doesn't need to, but there is a way. Although he might not like it at all, he will have to create a simpler version of his own ego to interact with the outside world, and place his true self as an observer inside. Basically, he's sealing his real ego away, showing only the attributes he wants to. Luca doesn't understand one word of it, so LA tells him that there are cases where normal people lose their entire personalities or memories due to trauma. They are doing that, but consciously. Luca wonders if something like this is even possible, but he wouldn't tell him if it wasn't. The Lay reveals that their brains are in a constant state of confusion. If he keeps acting like a loyal soldier, the ego of being one will envelop the surface of his mind. 2 months before the aptitude test, he woke up every single day and gave his prayers to the Emperor, copying what his father did. The only issue here is that doing it for too long will shake up his real ego, and eventually he will forget who he really is. Luca wonders where he even learned this. But in any case, if this is the method, then he does not need to pretend. He just needs to act as his past self, the one who received a high score in the psychological exam. He must become himself again, only before he met Kinuan. LA doesn't even want to know what he's going to do with this, but he shouldn't remind him to be careful. Messing with that exam is basically a death sentence. Luca did not expect to hear that from him, but suddenly, he gets a call from Kinuan, who is probably calling about training. Sure enough, he finds himself with him in the lower sector once again. Today's training session apparently being quite simple. As he tells him that this building is owned by a gang, Luca is nervous about him treating him like he used to even after that day. It's as if what happened didn't even occur in his mind. This is exactly what makes it even worse. Kinuan tells him that he has exactly 20 seconds to clear the room. He just has to take down everyone inside. Luca understands. He destroys the padlock, granting him access inside. One of the gangsters is woken up from his slumber. He sees Luca walking in, and asks what he wants. Is he a customer or something? Luca is impressed. This idiot walked up with his gun. There are 3 armed thugs at the playing table, and another further away, probably the boss. There's probably someone using the bathroom since the door is open. The gangster puts his gun up to his head. He didn't expect to bust up someone so early. But what the hell? Within a second, Luca sends him flying, shocking the others. Since there's a lot of things going on in his mind, this is the perfect time for him to let off some steam. The gangster's gun falls out of his grasp, which the others notice. So they immediately get up to retaliate, but once Luca grabs the gun, it's over. He shoots all of their guns away, leaving only the leader left. He shoots in his general direction, leaving Luca surprised. As for someone in the killing business, his aim is shitty at best. With one bullet he takes care of him. But suddenly the last gangster comes out, pulling his pants up, and with baton in hand, he gets to take in the sight of what has happened, and Luca suggests he knocks himself out, if he doesn't want to lose any limbs like these guys. The gangster at this point cannot refuse, so he takes himself out, yet Luca can still feel someone in the toilet. He opens the door only to find a woman there, making his blood boil. Kinnuan congratulates him for only taking 12 seconds as he comes out. He really did a good job. Luca wonders why they can't just eradicate those bastards, but Kinnuan tells him to not forget. They are outsiders, so any more interference will disrupt the ecosystem of this palace. Either way, there are countless people who cannot defend themselves. He's well aware what happens to them, right? Luca looks at the woman. She has suffered this fate because she had no strength to defend herself, while he struggled for power to be where he is, just so that he doesn't end up the exact same. Normally he would go on to call these people weak or idiots who failed to grasp opportunities, but right now, he feels nothing but disgust at how unfair their society really is. Kinnuan continued to give him tasks in the lower sector after that day, pushing him into fights without any prior information. He was not doing all that to make him learn how to win. The real lesson was how well he optimized the situations he was simply thrown in. Since identifying the opponent's capabilities is the rule of thumb here, he had to go beyond that, and judge the best course of action each time. Kinnuan, never the storyteller, continued doing this for some time, his lessons unknown. One day they go to a repair shop where the woman Luca rescued, Gilda, works at. Kinnuan asks for a cup of coffee, a long black with some oil, and Luca wants the same, only with no oil. Luca asks why they stopped by her workshop, but Kinnuan thought he would be more proud, seeing how hard she's working. After rescuing her, she told them her story. It seems like she was kidnapped, and endured all sorts of atrocities for several months. Thankfully, her mind remained intact, and she was able to return to a relatively normal life. The reason she was kidnapped in the first place was because a friend of hers, who had run off with the gang's dough, stayed over at her place. She ended up being their target since they had nothing else to take. However, her friend, who was the root of this entire issue, is long dead. Kinnuan reveals that she's from an orphanage. She had a knack for mechanical engineering since then, so he even funded her education. Naturally, he kept it anonymous so she doesn't know about it. Luca is surprised he knew of her from the start. Makes him wonder why he did nothing. Gabriel suddenly shows up, surprised to see Luca here, and asks Gilda for a beer. She suggests something else, since he's already overworking his neural system. After they saved her, Kinnuan introduced her to Gabriel, so he became her bodyguard, and she became his mechanic. Luca tells him to listen to her, although he would really like one beer. After their beverages arrive, Gabriel asks if they are the ones who have been poking around different gangs recently. Are they out of their minds? The gang bosses are already starting to group up to formulate a plan. If they proceed with that, even he cannot ensure Gilda will be safe. Kinnuan tells him to not worry, they will not be coming here for a while. Gilda asks how long, but Kinnuan doesn't know. Might be months, might be years. Who rightly knows? Luca can't even come here by himself, because superiors would never allow a trainee to just walk about. Actually, this might be the last time he sees these two. But even after her horrible fate, Gilda got back up and began to work again. Gabriel continues to take risks, working in his field, so he shouldn't pity them. Actually, not being able to come back to this place might be the best thing for him now. After this, he reports back to Hylas, who expected Kinnuan to continue performing like this. He became a trainee at a rather late age than normal. He would have never been granted the opportunity, but at the time the Empire accepted impurities if it was necessary. He only got in because of the chaos around them, but not even he knows what kind of man Kinnuan is. When he was just a fresh recruit, he easily became one of the key members in the Imperial Guard. He most likely specialized in discreet secret operations. Luca is surprised. Even someone like Hylas doesn't know about this guy. Hylas is glad Kinnuan has taken a liking to him. He has sent trainees over before, but they did not last much. He is good, but he's also in a vulnerable spot for negative influences. So he will schedule a psychological exam for him, which he must take. Luca agrees. He already expected this. Hylas wants to be frank with him for a second. There are two outcomes of trainees who receive this type of covert mission. They are either erased from existence, or rise to the heart of the Imperial Guard. As a reward for their loyalty, he hopes that he will end up the latter. Luca is only doing as he is ordered. If this operation ends well, he trusts that he will vouch for it. Hylas confirms as such. He will stand behind him if he succeeds. He will adopt him as his son. Luca Castoria doesn't sound unpleasant, right? Luca is shocked. as Hylas's family is one of the most renowned in the Empire. This is a pretty big deal. The robot tells him that they are about to begin the examination, but he detects joy from his face already. Did something pleasant happen? Luca continues to smile as he says that it's none of his business. Although he's too satisfied to stop, Ile continues his training. He has become more powerful, swifter, and more strategic in his strikes. This comes at the cost of much exhaustion. However, his joints even wear out so much he has to lubricate them. Luca is surprised by the amount of training he's doing. Is he the Ile he knows, or some type of imposter? Ile just asks if he passed the psych exam, which thanks to Hen he has. However, he doesn't know what's going on, so he should let him know if he can help. Ile can't reveal anything now, but soon he will ask him for a favor. He hopes that's fine. Luca looks at him and says that if he finds himself in any danger, he will always come to rescue him, even if it means risking his life. Ile thanks him and confirms once again that he will tell him soon, although he hopes that it will not be that way. Luca would lie if he said he wasn't curious about his favor, but he did not go out of his way to figure it out. Now that he has completed the psych exam and earned the trust of a chief centurion, his goal has shifted to becoming a true son of the Custoria family. At this time, this was the only thing lingering in his mind, but that would soon change. Helios soon called all of them and said that from this moment they will operate under a special military order. Its purpose is to suppress the rebels who have risen against their empire. They consist of 3 families led by none other than the Ramanes family. Luca is shocked, and after looking at Ile, realizes what his favor will entail. They all get prepped for the operation and soon get on their way. Luca introduces himself to the team as the leader of the 21st Suppression Army platoon. The soldiers salute him, ready to follow his orders. He did not expect the Empire to make Imperial Guard trainees serve as platoon leaders. The higher-ups must think of this as a training opportunity. Anyhow, the platoon got divided into 2 squads totaling 27 people, in which the vice platoon leader, Sergeant Kodrak, was his aide. Considering they are inexperienced in leadership, the Suppression Army mostly consists of veterans. Each of them knows that they are being used as trainee tools, making it unlikely for them to follow the orders of someone who they can't trust. Despite all of this, he still has to take control and command them. But how should he go on about it? Realistically, he has 2 options here. The first is to leave things to Kodrak, as even if he gives vague orders, he would take care of it. That is the standard choice. That's why he's going for the second. He tells them that he is superior to all of them, so he asks them to follow his orders fully. Disobedience will be considered treason. The soldiers immediately stare him down, and Kodrak tells him to talk about it, but Luca promptly grabs him and throws him into the others. He dares to lay his hands on a superior officer with no permission. Does he take him for a fool because of his young age? He is from the lower sectors like everyone here. He even grew up in a double-digit orphanage. But do they know why their social standings are so apart now? It is because he is too superior to all of them. They may not understand it now, but they will soon. He is a better platoon leader than anyone they have ever met. Kodrak understands. He has realized his mistake and will be more careful from now on. Luca knows that he understood that he did not pick the easy way out, which makes his job easier. They swiftly arrive at the enemy rebel fort, an Imperial Army outpost. Inside, LA hears what Luca did to one of his platoon members, but he just felt that he was treating him like a kid. LA says that they kind of are, but Luca doesn't like it. If one acts nicely, his underlings will think of him as weak. Hylas begins the briefing, skipping the formalities because they serve no purpose here. The rebels are holding a relic site of the arcane civilization. All the arcane fortress operations stand under their command as a result. The entire site is surrounded by walls. There is also a high-density force barrier, dome-shaped, that is protecting the fort, combined with turrets that are positioned to deal with aerial targets. There are 5 turrets in total. Thus, the 11th Armored Brigade is tasked with leading and destroying them. The rest of the army will push from the sides. Luca knows that the Armored Brigade uses full-body armor for all the members. The Empire is certainly not skimping out on forces with this suppression. The operation will begin at 14:10 hours, which is an hour and 30 minutes from now. They are expected to be ready by then. Luca and Ile got the back. Luca expecting their positions as support. Ile says it's only natural. They would not want them to die, but Luca thinks of this as a picnic. Ile hesitates for a moment, but then opens his mouth. Luca knowing that he wants to talk about the Ramanis family. Even if he has been close to them, there is nothing they can realistically do. If he sides with those who have committed clear treason, his family will not be able to pull him out. Ile is not hoping for any miracles, but if there's a chance, he hopes that he can rescue Lillian at least. Luca asks if he's so madly in love with her that he would put his life on the line. But she was Ile's first love. He doesn't have feelings towards her now. She also doesn't want to marry a noble. Luka has had enough. He should seriously get a fucking grip on the situation. He has overlooked his antics up until now, but he's crossing a clear line now. Even attempting to save her is too dangerous. He'll be executed on the spot with no trial. He shouldn't do anything stupid. This is his last warning. Ile agrees, and walks away, his face more determined than ever. Luka, because of Arky's victima, knows that this is a lie, that a fool will run in and save her at any cost. It doesn't matter whether Ile accepts it or not. For everyone's sake, Lillian must die. For Ile, though, he hopes that amidst the chaos, he will meet her dead. Then, he wouldn't have to lose a friend. Before the assault, Luka thinks of the most important parts of the body, the head and chest. As long as those two stand, the soldier of the Empire can't die. As long as one can breathe and supply the brain enough, the Empire will revive them again and again with technology. Kodrak approaches him, and Luka tells him to talk. He is aware of his abilities. He checks his superiors thoroughly after all. Luka asks what that has to do with anything, but Kodrak only wants him to listen. When they are in combat, he should at least consider his words. As he has served the Empire for 10 years, even though he's not as capable as him, he is not worthless either. Luka tells him not to worry. If the suggestion is valid, he will listen to anyone. Kodrak thanks him, and soon, they arrive at their location. The armored brigade is the first one to get out, their steel-plated bodies glistening under the light. They are ready for war. This is the Myrmidon model. This is the first time Luka is seeing it in person. It will serve them well since they are tasked with taking down the turrets. At the same time, the brigade charges launch themselves in the air, coming down on the barrier like missiles. The turrets react to their presence, but the brigade is ready, as they all launch their countermeasures. The turrets fire, hitting some of them, but the experienced get out of the way, allowing them to unleash a flurry of strikes on the barrier. This leaves it in a fiery smoke, but they are not done yet. Like demons from hell, they charge in again, and even if some strikes are impossible to dodge, they block them with their mighty spears. Since they got so close, the brigade smashes through the barrier like through cheese. Luka is surprised that they are so fast, but this is just the beginning. If they fail, the disadvantage on their side will be huge. According to the calculations, the estimated time until the turrets are eliminated is 1 minute after entry. If they fail to kill those turrets, the suppression forces then will need to march in and attempt it. 1 minute passes. Nobody makes a sound as they wait for the result with bated breath. Fortunately, the turrets are neutralized, meaning they are free to proceed. The battlefield is a cruel and dangerous place, but it's also where some men find joy in the adrenaline it gives. Luka likes it too. He's human after all, who derives accomplishment and joy from such a wicked thing. If one doesn't, they would go insane. Enough thinking though, it's time for him to show his capabilities. The plan consists of the infantry entering from every direction at once. Their superior intends to leave no room for the rebels to flee. The tunnels below are like a maze. Even the explored areas stretch to 100 meters deep. They do have a map of the tunnels from previous expeditions, but they are likely inaccurate. The rebels have surely messed with them. The infantry pushes in with Luka at the front. He notices that the entrances are narrowed, likely to not let the Myrmidons in. Upon getting inside, they find nothing, so Luka wants to lead from now too. But Kodrak advises that this is a dangerous move. They surely set up a trap or something. Luka asks if he's afraid of dealing with the consequences if he dies, which Kodrak confirms, but Luka doesn't care. He couldn't care less about what happens after he dies, so him having his pay halved is of no concern. He will lead the way. They should follow if they can keep up. At that moment, Luka felt a chill from them, as if these men behind him were ready to gun him down, but he can't worry about that. He must reach Lillian and eliminate her before LA can get here. He must also be in the tunnels now, probably having entered through a different point. If he is willing to extend his troops to advance, he will get through in no time. He could also sacrifice his men, but he must put personal emotions to the side. He can't just let loyal soldiers die. He will bear the risks on himself. Suddenly, the trap appears. Kodrak screaming for him, but Luka has already sensed it, and cuts it down with ease. Using the Arky's method, all of his senses are pushed to the bring, his sight, hearing, and even taste. He feels traces in the air with his tongue, allowing him to gather information. He continues to move on at inhuman speeds, shocking the others. Luka's arteries are expanding as his heart beats louder. The rushing blood gives him a constant surge of glucose to the brain. This makes pressure that puts him to his limits. He gets annoyed. It's frustrating how slow his men are. He feels like ripping Kodrak in two. He knew about this theory, but now he can feel it. Prolonged use of Arky's victima slowly damages the brain. He arrives at a door. The guards getting ready for an assault, but after a while of hearing nothing, they think they're safe. That's when Luka smashes through, his dark intentions permeating even through his thick armor. The guards get ready and fire. but Luca is like a demon and blocks all of their bullets. He dodges the next few ones as he moves in, taking head after head within. He uses everything in his arsenal to win. The guard with a rocket launcher shoots, but Luca simply cuts through the explosion itself. This creates a large dust cloud, allowing him to silently move in on the guard, who can now only scream for help. His men arrive too, only to see the absolute brutality he has left behind. Luca asks what took them so long, but anyway, they are moving forward, and this time, it would be best for them to keep up. The rebels actually begin to put up a good fight, using a wide area to cover fire, making it so Luca and his men cannot enter. He did not expect to see such a big area underground. They must have been forming their defensive lines here. He is deep enough already. There should be no problem in catching up with the nobles now. He summons a drone with which he can see through. Their line of defense consists of 100 troops. Behind them there are non-military personnel. Perhaps Lillian is among them too. Kodraff tells him that their squad is moving forward too swiftly. To the other squads, why don't they just wait for them and fight together? Luca thinks of this as logical. His brain is overloaded too from using Archies for so long. Suddenly, a bunch of gunfire occurs that wasn't fired at them, meaning that another side is being attacked. Luca knows it's Eli, as that's the only guy who would hurry so much, so he orders his men to charge in while the enemy is distracted. The bulwarks stand in the front, taking all of the hits, but their shields are not meant to withstand a flurry of constant bullets, so they will only last a few seconds more. Luca tells them to be patient. What he needs to be careful of is a weapon that can take him out instantly. From what he has seen, they have about 8 of these weapons, so he will aim for the moment where half of those are reloading. When he spots his chance, he jumps and tells his men to spread out. Kodrak is naturally shocked, but Luca still goes, only being hit by bullets that don't do any damage. This allows him to take out the bigger weapons with his own guns, and after he succeeds, he lands down, butchering the traitors as his soldiers move in. Most rebels surrender, Luca ordering Kodrak to restrain them, but among the bodies, he sees Eli's men too. They were probably tasked with attacking from the rear. He seems to be moving forwards, sacrificing tons of his men without regrouping. He seems to be desperate, but this is not good. He will have that woman's head before he gets to her. He would like to help, but he is a soldier of the Empire. He is at a crossroads. If he chooses one, he will give up the other. If he gets to Lillian, he will slay her on the spot, no matter if Eli hates him. At least he won't be a traitor. He tells Kodrak that they will continue arresting them until another platoon arrives. Once they regroup, he will make the decisions. Kodrak tells him that he's an amazing soldier. His combat today was incredible, but he has a major flaw as a commander. Luca doesn't get it. If he wasn't the commander, they would have suffered big losses. They already contributed a lot, so what's the problem? Kodrak reveals that he has not once led his men. He broke through the obstacles only through himself. Relying on such a method does not make him a good commander. Luca tells him off. He did so because of how inferior they are. They would never be able to understand proper command or fighting techniques. He could scoff at the sight of their uselessness, whining that they weren't useful. Kodrak says that one day, they will be useful. He cannot be the strongest forever. Luca tells him that he's free to cheer when that happens. He will have finally proved him wrong. However, he will keep his advice in mind. If he comes to see that his methods are wrong, he will recall his words and evaluate the strategy. Kodrak did not know his ego could coexist with an openness like this, so he wishes him the best. Luca passes scorched halls filled with bodies of nobles and of his comrades alike. It seems that similar things are happening in the corridors besides this one. Most of the suppression forces entered and are slowly eradicating the rebels. He must admit that even though a bit corny, Calais is not just a comrade, but a friend. He was the first person of his age whom he could exchange ideas with. Now though, he's giving away his soldiers' lives for personal reasons. They didn't have to die. An ordinary platoon would not have given up so many men. Even if he were to grab Lillian and run, where would he go? In the end, she will die. He understands he loves her, but they don't need to die together. His emotions are simply overtaking him. Suddenly a head begins speaking, bowing to surrender, but Luca doesn't care about that. Does he know where Lillian went? He says that he doesn't know, but his iris shifts to the side, a common way to tell that someone is lying. He grabs his eye and gives him one last chance. Where did Lillian go off to? The rebel says that she went down, which confuses Luca, as the only way out is up. Does that mean there's a way to escape below? The rebel doesn't know. They did not tell him directly. Luca also asks if he has seen Eli, which he has. He's the bastard that put him in such a state. Even though they knew each other, he did this to him. Luca swiftly kills him. He would have died anyway. This is better since he wasn't tortured. He does not feel guilt about killing people, but today he's really numb to it. The battlefield has hardened him. He hears screams and shouts drawing nearer and nearer. He wonders about Eli, if he has crossed a road of no return, like killing his own man. What must he do to him then? Luca has always felt a little paranoid when he hung out with Ile, so much that he kept asking himself the same exact question. What would he even do if Ile turned against the Empire? He kept putting off that question, but now he can't anymore. He must confront it head-on. He enters the main room, only to find Ile standing on the table, among his comrades' bodies. He turns to Luca, not surprised that he came. Luca says that now he's done it. He sacrificed his own men for his selfish reasons. He also sees the Raminus family, cowering like worms behind Ile, especially that fucking kid. He can't believe all of this happened because of her. He will rip her fucking spine out by the end of this. Ile tells that he won't leave them to die. He should draw as they will fight. Luca is glad to. He will finally beat some sense into that dumb head of his. Luca knows he has to fight him, and theoretically he would win with no major injuries. But combat is filled with tons of variables not often seen. He cannot take him down quickly enough. He will hold him off, giving those roaches enough time to escape. He will just have to kill them first. It does not matter if killing Lillian will make Ile fight even more feverishly or something. At least that way, Ile won't have blood on his hands. Unfortunately, he already knows he's going for Lillian, so Ile tries to shoot him, but all of his shots miss. A single gun like that is useless against any trainee. Their trajectory prediction makes him shoot like a retired farmer in their eyes. However, before embarking on this mission, he had to expand the speed and range of his cybernetic signals forcibly, so there is no way such sloppy attempts at stopping him would work. The guards desperately try to shoot him down too, and Ile tries to warn them, but it's far too late. Luca cuts one of them before his bullet even arrives, and then redirects it towards the other, leaving him defenseless. He moves on to the roaches. He first takes out the father with a head slash, that even goes through the mother. The only one left is Lillian. He has plenty of time to kill her now, even though Ile will attack soon. Lillian is the first woman who approached him with affection. He might feel guilty about killing her, but he would feel even more so if he let Ile do something foolish. At least he will make her death painless. It's the least he can do after all. As he approaches, though, he sees a strange sight. Her laughing. He hesitates, allowing Ile to dash in and pin Luca to the ground. Luca tells him about what he saw. Her entire family died. Yet she's laughing. Ile doesn't find it surprising. She has finally been freed from a family that only treated her as a tool for marriage. Luca has had enough and strikes him in the side, allowing him to get up. He should stop being so damn defensive. That woman is nothing but a traitor. Ile says that he knows nothing. The families marked as traitors by the Empire have never actually rebelled. It's just an excuse to wipe them out. Can he see how weak their defenses were? If they really wanted to strike at the Empire, they would have involved Cora or Balato instead of their own soldiers. Luca knows he's not wrong. Getting into the fortress was the most difficult thing here, but everything after that went pretty smoothly. Considering 3 noble families planned this treason, they had a small amount of forces. If they were really rebelling, there would be no reason not to get help from the other nations. But so what? Even if that is true, what does it change? At this rate, Ile will end up dying together with Lillian. She looks at Luca and says that her father is not exactly innocent. He hid the fact that he discovered an arcane relic. Ile tries to stop her, but she goes to her father's quartz and shows him why her family was hunted down. It's because of this. This is what allows a person to operate the fortress. Luca asks what that has to do with anything. Lillian, knowing that he did not kill her just because he felt guilty or something, he was scared of Ile hating him after. He must be aware that his friend can't live the life he wants in the Empire, but this here is a choice that benefits everyone. With this, they can activate the teleportation device located underground. He has the opportunity to help them break out of the Empire's hands and allow his friend to live his dreams. Luca is surprised at first and asks her to reconfirm that there's really a teleportation device here, which Lillian does. It's set up in one of the tunnels, probably an escape route in case the fortress falls or something. He should feel free to take her down if he believes this is a lie. She does not want to see Ile die because of her protection. However, if they manage to activate the teleportation device with this relic, he and she can escape the Empire, and he just needs to report that he just didn't see them. Luca asks if she truly thinks the Empire would have just left a device like that just lying around, but Lillian tells him to rest assured. Only the Raminus lineage knows of the route. If they go deep underground, not even scanners will detect them. Luca would lie if he said that he's not tempted. He could care less about Lillian, but he must do the best thing for Ile. He has always wanted to leave this place, and he's sure that his dangerous ideas will inevitably get him executed. However, this is a battlefield, so reporting him dead or missing would not be strange at all. After thinking on it a bit more, he sheathes his sword. Ile wanting to thank him, but Luca shuts him down, as he wants him to promise one thing. If the teleportation device Lillian talked about does not exist, or does not work, then he will not stand in front of him again. As he heard her right, even she does not wish for him to get into trouble. Ile is worried. He looks at Lillian for advice, who simply nods her head. With hesitation in his voice, he agrees. So they begin to slowly descend. Luca thinks that he finally lost it. Not only is he not stopping Ile, but he's also helping a traitor. If the other soldiers catch as much as a whiff of this, they are as good as dead. Lillian tells him to stop. She wants to clean Ile's face before the blood dries. Luca sighs. If they are lucky enough to get out of here alive, why don't they get married? Since that's what they both want. This makes Lillian recoil, and she apologizes to Ile, as she never expected things to end like this. Ile is fine with this. She was the one who taught him about the outside world. Lillian believes that this is something small, but Ile treasures it dearly, as she changed how he sees the world. Thanks to her, he was finally able to pinpoint the source of his frustrations. If she wasn't there, he would have gone crazy some time ago. What she said made him realize that he's not really weird, just different than most. Luca detests Lillian even more now. She is the woman who helped Ile foster such crude ideals. These thoughts spread like a cancer, and will eat the empire from within if they are allowed. If these thoughts are allowed to spread, the empire will begin to crumble, and the other nations will surely take advantage of this. This is something that threatens his empire. If needed, he will kill anyone to protect it, even if he has to cut Ile down. He confirms to himself that he is not a dissident like these two. After they travel a bit more, Luca can rest easy. Now that they're further away, Lillian already told him that this road is unknown to anyone. They will not be able to easily find it because of its maze-like features. Her father did not report anything, despite having received permission to study the ruins. He had admissions far beyond his capability, especially when he figured out how to activate the fortress. But the Emperor already knew of his cunning personality, and expected this. Luca asks how much further they have to go, with Lillian noting that this will be the last corridor they have to walk down on. She also thanks him, but Luca doesn't need that. He's just repaying a debt to his friend. Next he sees her. She's as good as dead. He also tells Ile to stay safe, if he can. Lillian says that if they can actually leave this place, she's going to the border city. They should meet there if they are forced to split up. She also invites Luca to leave the empire, but he's not at all interested. Ile becomes saddened after hearing about the border city, and Luca is completely exhausted. Deciding to help Ile might have been a foolish, sentimental mistake, but he cannot rest now. He must think of how he will even report this incident. The good news is that the chief centurion holds him in high respect, as he's the only one who can spy on Kinnuan. Ile and Lillian are just two unimportant kids at the end of the day, nothing special. Surely he will not be asked many questions if that's the case. As they approach the final door, Luca tells them to get prepared. If the device is not here, this whole thing is over. Luca pressed the button to open the door, but immediately regrets his decision. A bad feeling immediately overwhelms him. The only thing he knows is that it's coming from the door. He can't see much because of how bright it is, so he focuses on his smelling sense, only to smell fresh blood, a mix of oil and iron shortly following. These are not human smells, meaning that the worst has happened and they have stumbled upon the Imperial Guards. He would have to put his life on the line to even fight one of them, but four at the same time? The worst-case scenario would be then capturing Lillian alive. She is not trained like them, so she would break under some easy torture. And if that happens, everyone will learn of their rebellious actions. He thought he could help them and let them live their lives, but that was all a fantasy. They must assassinate him at once, even if they are suspicious. He must do it before Ile does something to worsen the situation. His eyes meet with one of the guards, so all of them turn their attention to the door. Luca knows that there are only a few seconds to act, but before he can do anything, Lillian is shot in the head by Ile, killing her instantly. The Imperial Guard demands to know why they fired just now. Ile explains that he just executed a hostage that they had no use for. The Imperial Guard still does not know why he brought a rebel so far. They will both report what happened. Then they will decide if it's the truth or not. Luca looks at Lillian's lifeless corpse as the Imperial Guards approach Ile to question him. The life he dreamed of is over, and you will never be allowed to escape the Empire. Hylas congratulates Luca upon his return. Kodrak himself rated him highly. He praised his combat skills. He even called him the best he has worked with as his platoon leader. The only downside he pointed out was that his ability to trust his subordinates was lacking, but that can be learned easily, especially from Kinnuan. The reports also mention that they waited until Lillian led them to the deepest part of the tunnel before killing her. Is there a reason for her to guide them so far? Luca knows that the time has come, so with a deep breath he begins explaining. He and Ile had planned to stop the escape of the rebels by taking over the teleportation device, so they naturally believed Lillian was the best choice of hostage, given that she could not do anything against them. Hylas understands that, but he has one question about his relationship with Lillian, but not just him. Ile also had strong connections to her. Luca trembles, but his voice remains steady. Neither of them is foolish enough to ruin the mission over such a thing. He should know that better than anyone after all. If he's honest, he also wanted to give Lillian some hope, that she would be spared if she assisted them. They believed that at least she should die with that in mind. Hyla sternly looks at him, Luca praying that he bought it, and he indeed has. He must be tired after such an ordeal. They should leave it at that. Before he leaves, however, he would like to note that the Ramones family had some expert soldiers, judging by how they wiped Ilei's platoon just like one of their soldiers. Luca knows he's not supposed to be surprised by this. He already mentioned everything in the report, that the platoon was ambushed while in pursuit. Is this some type of test? He turns around with his heart beating even faster, and says that if it was him, he would have killed everyone before his platoon could even get injured. So the top seat of their crop is basically his. Killian agrees. He expects great things from him after all. On his way back to the capital, Luca immediately fell asleep, which is only natural, considering he has spent days without any time to relax. The things he experienced continue to replay in his mind. Ilay, Lillian, the entire arcane fortress, and even the border city, the place Lillian wanted to go to. In the end, she died before she could even take a step outside of the Empire, and at the hands of her only friend, who she must have considered some kind of knight in shining armor. At the time, he could not bear to look at Ilei's face. He knew that he only did this because he was there. Otherwise, he would have probably died with her. He would like to apologize to them, but in the end his goal has been achieved. He was able to save his friend, so this much is good enough. After returning to the capital, they took a long rest, and after that, they were awarded medals of honor based on their achievements. The medal in particular is the 7th rank crossword. Out of everyone, only he and Ilay received these prestigious pieces of metal. Ilay finds it ironic that he gets rewarded like this, and Luca admits that he never expected him to kill Lillian. He thought that at least he would try to attack the Imperial Guards, even if without any chance of victory. Ilay confirms that he would have if he wasn't there, but at least his family is happy for this medal. Even though they interacted with the Ramones family often, Luca advises him to quit. Being a soldier really isn't for him. This assessment is only natural. He literally killed his own men to serve his own emotions. The soldiers died for one man's stupid young love. Ilay would if he could, but it's never that easy, as his family wants him to be an Imperial Guard, no matter what it takes. Honestly, he would rather have been killed back then. At least he would have died a human. Luca is ticked off by this statement, then punches him hard in the gut, making the metal fall to the ground. He should watch his damn mouth with these things next time. Ilay says that the punch hurts quite a bit. He might have damaged his organs. Luca doesn't care. He can get them replaced anyway. Ilay slumps to the ground. He has never been this disappointed in himself. If only he had given his all to become stronger, like he did. Luca tells him that nothing would have changed. He will never be able to take on 4 guards at once. Ilay is too defeated to even be angry anymore. Instead, he feels overwhelming sadness, as he wonders what he could have done better. Luca stays silent. Ilay is not like him, a murderer. He feels guilt from killing his men, and even though he sacrificed them, he still could not save his first love. The catalyst has been broken. Sooner or later, Ilay will die, either physically or mentally. Truly, this guy has been born in the wrong country, as he does not belong here. As they get down from the roof, Ilay tells Luca that he will take his leave and stay at home for a while. It's been 4 years since he left. He should be allowed at least 2 months. Luca is still confused about something. Why did Lillian laugh as she saw her family die? Ilay explains that she had a fiancé, an arranged one by her family, naturally. He was a man 30 years older than her. From the very moment Lillian was born, that man promised too much money. In exchange for one thing, he requested that they raise her to be a carbon copy of his dead wife, even sending pictures and records to ensure maximum similarity. Her face, preferences, even habits and name, none of that was her own. She was basically a living puppet. That was why she was so knowledgeable about Bellato as well. Luca is disgusted, but this is what happens when desires meet with the power of cash. She has been abused since birth, Claude being the only one who gave her even a little sympathy. Luca now gets why Claude tried to set him up with her, which makes Ilay laugh. It was actually he and Lillian who set that up, as he told Claude he was the bastard child of the chief centurion. Luca wants to curse him, but then asks if Claude really bought that. Ilay says that it's not hard. Everyone knows how the chief centurion treats him. They would also explain why someone like him from an orphanage managed to become an Imperial Guard trainee. Since he is from the Custoria family, Claude thought that if they got married, then she would get off scot-free from that other deal. Luca doesn't even know what to say anymore. This is just wrong. Ilay is his best friend, but not a good man in the slightest, as he will deceive others if need be. He went ahead and killed his squad after all. As ironic as this all is though, he still trusts him, even after all that he has done. Besides this, Luca periodically visited Kinuan. He had to monitor him after all, and he was aware of this. He congratulates him on his medal, but Luca says that everyone gets something like this eventually. Compared to other achievements, this much is nothing. Even if he's forced to do this, Luca doesn't actually mind talking with him. He heard from the chief centurion that he knows how to manage his subordinates, which Kinuan feels is an overestimation, but since he's doing much worse, he can give him some advice. He asks if the men were not listening to his orders somehow, but Luca denies that they are all excellent soldiers, willing to rush into death, even at the orders of a commander they know nothing about. If that is the case, Kinuan suggests he was soft. Instead of utilizing them, he chose to bear the risks all by himself. Luca believes that in doing so, their capabilities remain ready for a more dangerous situation, but Kinuan refutes this. The more he fights personally, his brain will have to carry a heavier burden, clouding his decision-making, the most important skill in a commander. He expended a resource he should have conserved desperately, just because he wanted to protect his men. Luca asks if he really should have used them instead, but Kinuan isn't telling him to let them charge and die. He must make his men choose it willingly. He probably remembers Gilda and Gabriel from the lower floor. He saved one from a life of slavery and paid the other's medical expenses. These two would naturally be happy to help him. Luca believes so too, since he did something for them, but Kinuan says this is not enough for them to be willing to even give their lives. He must spend time deepening the bond, and at the same time, distance himself emotionally. If he lets himself get too connected, he will hesitate to use them when needed. Luca notes this is something you would rather not do, which Kinuan finds cute, so he gives him a quote to go by. Be loved, but never love back. This is the secret to maintaining the advantage in every relationship. Luca asks what will happen if his mind can't handle sacrificing people, because of guilt or something. Kinuan tells him that the only thing to do is get used to it. If not, he will never be able to stand on top, like the others. Luca swiftly gets up, and says that he will try to sacrifice more men next time, which Kinuan is happy with. The very next day, Luca waits at a helipad, as he has received orders from Hylas to go to the academy. This naturally surprised him, but it would be only for 2 months, and will also be a good experience. Luca thought he was exempt, but Hylas noted that they send their best first, and since Alay refused, he's going alone. He never truly experienced what noble society is like. That won't do in this world, not if he truly wants to become a part of the Kushtorians. Luca accepted to go since that's what he's thinking, so Hylas assigned him a guide, one that he bets you will like. The transport vehicle soon arrives, and the door opens to reveal his guide, a girl with dark hair. Upon entering, Luca sits down and introduces himself, but she tells him that there's no need to introduce himself. She already knows everything about him. Luca sees her aggressive and arrogant demeanor, combined with the fact that she's got a body that is barely mechanized, makes him think that she's a noble. Luca explains that he's here on the orders of the chief centurion. He wants to know how long it will take to reach the academy, but he wants to confirm if she's really the guide he set. She asks what her answer will change, making Luca want to throw her out of the vehicle. He really hates nobles, but it's fine. She already knows she's a lady of the Custoria family. She is surprised and asks how he found out. Luca used simple deduction. Few can afford to voice their discontent against the orders of a chief centurion after all. She asks if he really wasn't informed of her identity before that. Luca, knowing that she won't believe anything he says, tells her that she should ask her father. This woman is likely Hylas's daughter. Sending her means that he intends to uphold his end of the bargain and adopt him into the Custoria family. Luca, Custoria does have a pretty nice ring to it. She finally relents and confirms that she did get sent here by her father. She's Giselle, but he should never act like he's a smartass. It irritates her. Luca can now see that Lillian was a saint compared to others, and apologizes for offending her. However, why does he need to bend over to these people? He didn't survive hell just to kiss some noble ass. He accepted this mission precisely because he wanted to escape this life. He's sure Hylas will understand, so he drops the fakeness. He would rather beat himself to death than suck up to someone who hates him. They should just do what they were ordered to. She will guide. He will follow. Giselle is ticked off, but lets it go, as she doesn't want to stoop to his level. Just from this encounter, Luca can guess that this will be more annoying to deal with than anything. After they land, Giselle begins guiding him to the dormitory where he will be staying. After they walk some more steps, they stumble upon a statue of the emperor, the father of their nation, Denokrathia. Before the statue can smile, Luca looks around, taking in the sight of the Krathia Academy, something which he has only seen in the media. Everyone looks at him as he steps closer, and Giselle explains that their uniforms are violet with a tinge of black. Luca sees someone bullying a commoner, more specifically the implants he has, a waste on someone so useless. Giselle asks what he's waiting for. Does he not have a pair of colorable clothes? Luca tells her that trainees have no use for fashion, making her shocked. How can he be so unprepared? As she regrets guiding him, Luca smiles, as he did not expect to see her get flustered over the color of some clothes. He apologizes for his transgression, but suddenly, someone recognizes Luca from behind. That someone being Felix, another trainee. He thought that he would skip this too since Alay isn't coming. He greets Giselle. They have met before, but he introduces himself once again and asks for a minute to talk with him. Giselle has had enough for the moment, and lets him do as he pleases. Felix grabs him tightly. He did not expect to see him with the Lady of Castoria. The rumors about the chief centurion being dear to him were no joke. Luca tells him that she's extremely annoying for his daughter. She disrespected him from the beginning. He was just tempted to throw her out. Felix laughs and explains that the chief just wants him to experience noble society and all its ugly sides for the future. Perhaps he's also looking for a son-in-law for her. Get what he means? Luca doesn't believe that. His personality is not the best, and with how she acts, the marriage would likely break in a few days. Moreover, Hylas already made a deal with him. In turn for keeping Kinuan under watch, he will adopt him, so there's no need to get married. Although he cannot fault Felix for thinking that. Felix also asks if he has modified his body on the lower parts too, which he has not, so he hands him some protection, as trainees visiting the academy are always super popular with girls. Luca pockets the protection, and is glad Felix informed him on such necessary things for living in the academy. He has a feeling they will become quite good friends. One thing Felix also told him about was the dormitory. Basically, it's where talented kids from the lower sectors like him, and kids of low-tier noble families stay at. This is the best they can get after all. Luca is disappointed but not surprised to see that the class system exists even in the academy, but it probably would not be fun otherwise. He will just have to rise through the ranks like usual. Upon arriving in his room, however, he is surprised by the quality of the place, and immediately boots his assistant robot out to take it in. He did not expect for lower-class people to stay in such good rooms. No wonder this is the best academy. It's where the talented who are not fit for the military end up after all. He sits down on his comfortable sofa and closes his eyes. Giselle showed him to the dorm and explained that when classes are over, the head of the dormitory will come to lead him to his room. She also gave him her personal number if anything happens, but Luca thought she hated him. Giselle explained that she was just carrying out her duty, making Luca think that she's not a spoiled brat after all, but that he likely will not need to. She was fine with that, but gave him a little warning. For his sake, he really should not get too close to the head of the dormitory. Despite appearances, she's completely and utterly demented. Suddenly someone knocks at his door. That someone being none other than the head of the dormitory, Barbara. Luca introduces himself and she greets him. She comes right quick after her classes. She hopes he did not wait long. Luca analyzes her, seeing her tattered cuffs and clothes, and no last name, meaning that she's of lower class. Luca doesn't get any demented vibe from her. Perhaps Giselle just hates commoners. He says that he just arrived, and she asked how to address him, as he's amazing, for him to become an Imperial Guard trainee despite his background. Luca says that his name is just fine, but what she said can be applied to her too. She's the head of the dormitory. Not an easy position to obtain if he would guess. He can only think of the mountains she had to move to get to this position. He feels a similarity to her. She asks him to follow, as she will give him a rundown of the dorm. It's her duty as head of the dormitory after all. Luca, however, notices the water on her hair. She probably just showered. Even if her class is just ended, she must be tight on time, or perhaps she's just using it efficiently. The next day, at the main building of the academy, Giselle meets up with Luca, who is now wearing proper clothing, so they should head to the classroom. He has to attend classes for a week after all. Luca hopes that he won't go insane from that, but suddenly as they walk, Barbara calls over Giselle, as it's been a while since they last talked. She tells her to get lost, but Barbara just wanted to say hi. Giselle approaches her, greets her with a stern face, and tells her that there's nothing more to say. They should move. They don't want to be late for their first class after all. Luca looks back at the saddened Barbara, her body posture closed, just like the other losers of the lower sectors. Did she really make it to the dorm head position with such an attitude? He really doesn't like it. As they walk, he notes that she must know Barbara well, but Giselle doesn't. They just entered the academy around the same time. Luca asks why she hates her, but she ignores him as she continues to walk. Giselle called Barbara a demented individual, yet Barbara continues to cling to her. It's interesting, but at the same time, none of his business. What's important is that, if he makes it through 2 months of this, he will be a noble. Gossip like that shouldn't worry you. That's what he thought at first, but he has to take these boring classes for a week anyway. So probing their relationship became one of his pastimes. There isn't much else to entertain him here. Even Felix did not want to fight him because he would lose, so he's going to get rusty at this point. He wants to fight. The image of him with his blade in hand and an enemy in front, It exhilarates him. Perhaps it's the chemicals he was injected with, but he wants to wage war, no matter the opponent. Suddenly the opportunity arises. The noble screams at him and asks what his relationship with Giselle is. He's been clinging to her all week. Luca doesn't feel tempted to answer his question. Does he like her or something? Luca is surprised anyone likes her. He really can do better than that hag. The noble becomes enraged and tries to hit him, but Luca immediately grabs his hand and twists it. He doesn't feel any joy from feeling such a weak opponent, so he lets him go. The noble asks if he's really not in a relationship with her, which he confirms, but he also has something to ask. The noble doesn't feel the need to answer, making Luca want to tear him a new one, but lets it go, and promises to tell Giselle about him. He just wants to know why she hates Barbara. He explains that this was not the case from the beginning. It's because she was cursed by her. He's talking about Barbara here. Anyone close to her is always involved in an incident where the androids go AWOL. The very same androids, which are famous for not having any sort of issues, suddenly go berserk. That's why they named it Barbara's Curse. Luca knows about the robots. They are unlikely to malfunction. But what does that have to do with Barbara? The noble tells him that she's creepy. What kind of person looks for new friends when she's aware that people around her will be in danger? That's why everyone is mean to her. That's why she's the dormitory head, as it's a position with no benefits and tons of work. Luca now understands why she's head. And to prove his other point, the noble tells him to look. Some girls begin to bully her very close, throwing water on her head, but they feel generous. They will wash her clothes, so she has to strip now. Barbara refuses, as she will just go into the changing room. But the main bully is surprised she has the gall of refusing their kindness. She will do as she is told, because she was told. Okay? With hesitation, Barbara begins to undress. And now Luca understands. The same thing probably happened on that day when she gave him the tour. She didn't wash. She just had water poured on her head. She's in luck, however, as he's in the mood to create some chaos. He throws the knife at the bully, making her drop the cup, and tells them to buzz off. She asks if he knows who he just messed with. But Luca doesn't care if they are women. His fists of justice are unisex. This makes the bullies leave, and the drenched Barbara thanks him. Luca gives her a sinister grin, wondering if he will get attacked by androids from now on. The noble swiftly pulls him away and tells him that the woman he just annoyed was Kalesa Kano. He really messed with the wrong person. Luca did not know why he pulled him away like this, but he already knew who she was. It's a powerless family that can cause no trouble. The noble explains that this is just a facade. The Kano family runs a gang in the lower sectors and makes money through illegal trade. They might be hunting him down as they speak. Luca hopes that's the case, since he's too bored in this place. But the noble only advises he be careful. They are known for seeking payback for attacking their lady. They also went after Barbara for that reason, since Kalisa's boyfriend got cursed by her. Luca understands, and suddenly, Giselle appears, seeming quite annoyed. Luca tells the noble to say hi since he likes her so much, but he refuses, as he's happy just admiring her from far away, but he should not forget to put in a good word for him. With that he bolts away, Luca introducing him as Enrico Laken, a kind and gentle soul. Giselle doesn't think so. She's actually pretty disgusted with him, as she feels he's always nearby. Luca apologizes to Enrico in his head, but at this point, shooting his shot would not only miss, but land in a whole nother court. Later, at the office of Professor Gid Alburn, he asks Luca if he really threw a knife at a student. Even with only a pocket knife, he can easily stir this pot of nobles. He understands that this place is boring, but he asks him to take it calmly. This is the dean of the Imperial Guard cadets. Luca understands. He knew that he would get an easy warning, since this guy is also a former Imperial Guard. Gid tells him that he's basically a wolf in sheep's clothing here. Since none of the kids here train, Luca says it doesn't matter. They shouldn't act like he's not able to bite. Gid now understands why Hylas likes him so much. But in the end, it's the academy graduates who become bureaucrats of the elite level, and have soldiers like them at their every beck and call. He might see them as some sheep, which they are now, but among them are also monsters, who can barely wear that human facade. Compared to wolves like them, they are monsters. Luca grabs his knife back, and says that he will keep it in mind. As he walks away, he thinks that he's not after some mere monsters. He's after the curse of a witch. Intentionally, he winds up alone in the path behind the djinn. Curfew has long passed, and news that he intervened with Barbara has spread. And if the rumors are true, the androids will go ballistic and try to attack him. Suddenly someone appears behind him. Not an android but some small fry. He asks what they are here for. So the group leader tells him that Kalesa just wanted to send her regards. It's their rule to send out greetings like this. He won't report to his superiors that he got beaten to a pulp by a couple of students, right? After all, he's one amazing Imperial Guard cadet. Luca can't believe this killjoy. Does he truly think he can even scratch in? The leader provides him with an opportunity. Their lady is gracious, so if he goes to her now, on his knees and apologizes, she will forgive him. Luca is also gracious. If they walk away now, he will make sure that they will only get one broken limb each, because he will never lose to little kids who have never seen the battlefield. The leader knows this is an invitation, so using his overpowered fist and swift legs, he charges in. Luca recognizes these as high-powered prosthetics, really useless on someone like him, but whatever, he will swiftly deal with this. Suddenly, a red glow coming from the forest attracts everyone's attention. An android has appeared, asking if they need its help. The leader screams at one of his guys. Did he not say that there were no patrols around this time? The member says that it's still true. Androids do not come to this place. He doesn't know what this thing is doing here. The leader won't fight like this, but promises Luca a rematch to finish their greeting. Luca simply stares at the android as they leave. The android still asking if they need its help. The member kicks it away because of how annoying it is. But this triggers something in the android. It begins to convulse, and its red glow burns brighter. With extreme speed, it completely blasts the head of the member into goop, shocking the others. It doesn't stop there. The android swiftly rushes to its next target. But before he can hit him, Luca intervenes and sends it away. The other member screams that this is Barbara's curse. The witch does exist. She's really cursed. Luca tells him to not put any stock into that, because this is a simple machination. He analyzes the android. It's clearly using its maximum output, which will only last mere minutes. It probably realized it will need it in a fight with him. However, this makes it clear that this is no simple malfunction. This is the work of a human. But that's fine with him, as he really wanted a true warm-up. The android rushes in with a powerful strike, a clean chop despite it being so reckless, making him wonder if it's using a high-quality battle program or something. It even has metal claws to assist. The hit from those would definitely land even him in a hospital. But even this is hardly a fight. He wants more, something that sets his dopamine aflame. He kicks the droid once again, so it resorts to jumping on him from afar. Luca wants it to pass his expectations. He throws his knife in the air, making the android look behind for a second, and that's all Luca needs to get behind it, although this is quite a disappointing performance. As he rips off the droid's hands, he asks how it will rise above when it gets distracted by every little thing. The droid begs for help in its own way, and Luca is still not sated. So he invites the leader to spar. Now the problem is gone, right? He immediately bolts away, something which Luca did expect. And suddenly, a bunch of security cars pop up, staring straight at him. Luca sits on a park bench after the incident. The security forces requested him to cooperate in their investigation. The main investigator, Gillian Campbell, knows the culprit is still in the academy, so they have no choice but to investigate all the nobles, even if they hate that. Luca asks if there's any chance of the culprit being from the lower sectors, which Gillian refuted. It would be impossible to get through the firewall and enter the Academy's encrypted network. Luca didn't understand why he had to assist then, when he's just an ordinary student. So Gillian explained that it's because he can use Arky's Victima, which requires exceptional insight. He met this requirement. Hell, he's the only one who did. So he will have the role of investigator. Gillian saw the look of confusion on his face, so he told him that users of that technique are so important, they are recorded on an entirely different list, so they pay close attention to people like him. Luca asked why, so Gillian advised him to ask his mentor for that answer, as he would be happy to tell him. Suddenly, Giselle appears, asking what's going on. Does he realize what happened to her because he accepted those orders? He warned him not to approach Barbara, yet he still did it. Luca would not just stand back and watch a group of snobby nobles pick on someone, making Giselle ask if he's thinking of fighting again. Luca will have no choice but to defend himself if it comes to that. So Giselle begins to think about it carefully. She explains that she will meet with Kalisa and ask for a settlement. She will come to a compromise if she talks with her. Luca doesn't get why she's trying to mediate the situation so much, but soon realizes what she's saying. Kalisa would compromise, not because she wants to, but because she said so. Luca agrees. He will join her too, as he would rather not grab the attention of the chiefs. Besides that, there's also something he would like to check. Upon meeting, Kalisa explains that Barbara hit on her boyfriend first, but Luca doesn't believe she would let that happen. Is she sure she didn't send her boyfriend on purpose or something? Kalisa's eyes widen at this idea, but Luca goes further. He taps on the chessboard, showing what happened to him. Her boyfriend could not disagree when she threatened to send people like this to him. Didn't she also need an excuse to mess with Barbara? This makes Kalisa furious. She smashes the chessboard and tells him to shut up. She never did anything wrong. Giselle tells her to calm down, but upon refusing, Giselle tells her again with a much rougher tone. something she cannot ignore. Giselle also sends Luca away as she wants to talk with Kalisa alone, and he agrees to leave. It's as he expected. Giselle clearly has the upper hand over Kalisa. However, this still begs the question, why didn't Giselle stop her? He's only been here for 2 months. But to him, it would have been much easier to do just that. Soon enough, Giselle walks out, mad that he brought even more on her head. As he said he would not cause trouble. Luca was just merely testing his theory that the androids are not controlled by anyone else but the nobles. Kalisa also just happened to be one of the people who hated Barbara. Giselle tells him to stop acting like an investigator. The real ones will crack down this case eventually. Luca is sure they will have the most wonderful time getting info from the nobles, which Giselle feels is a mockery, but it's only the truth. He guesses that this is similar to how she can just stop Kalisa from speaking at her word. Giselle explains that family name carries a lot of noble society. Kalisa is merely respecting her position, that is all. Luca then asks if that's why she ordered her to bully Barbara, as it has become quite obvious. Someone who hated Barbara just happened to have the perfect chess piece to play, and they just used them eagerly. Giselle swiftly grabs his shirt and tells him to stop talking. Did the mechanical enhancements mess up his brain? She suddenly lets go, apologizing for doing this. But it would be better for everyone if he does not cause another issue. Based on circumstance alone, Luca has surmised that Giselle is the most suspicious. But then, why is she shaking so much? It appears that his Barky's victima is only causing confusion at this point. As Luca thinks on this, Barbara shows up and tells him to accept what she made. Luca asks what this is for, and so she tells him it's a gift, a thank you for saving, and while he stays at the academy, she can also cook for him. Luca passes on that. He doesn't want to cause a misunderstanding, but Barbara is fine with that. This makes Luca wonder if she really likes him, but still, something's off. He asks her why she's trying to contact him when she knows that the androids will keep targeting her. Does she want him to get caught in danger too? Barbara refutes this. She just doesn't know what else to do at this point. Luca can see she's still hiding her emotions, so he tells her the reason Kalisa is bothering her, because of Giselle, and she won't stop until they get what they want. Barbara explains that she already knew that, but this makes Luca ask why Giselle hates her, making Barbara switch personality instantly, and ask why she has to tell him that. Luca wanted to see how she would respond to this provocation, as she was feeling off for some time. When she turned to him, Gid's words suddenly erupted in his mind, that monsters hide around here, and one of those monsters has been revealed to be Barbara. Later that day, Luca calls Gid, who met with Kalisa's boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend to be precise. As he presumed, Kalisa intentionally set him and Barbara up, and because of his family reputation and rather unpleasant personality, he had no way to refuse. He's got to say though, he made the right decision letting him investigate. Luca understands now. Kalisa did that to get an excuse, but if he points out a suspect, will he be able to investigate with his authority? Gid confirms as such, but he only gets a few tries. It would be risky if they got the wrong person after all. Luca did not expect him to be so righteous, but Gid tells him it's because this is the 6th case with the androids, and there was even a death now. He just wants to chain up these bastards, who think that they can get away with fooling them. Luca asks if he has gotten anything on Barbara, but Gid doesn't get why he's so suspicious of her. She's from the lower sectors, and just a student, it would be impossible for her to get through the academy firewall and access the intranet. Luca asks if that's not the case with the nobles too, but that's actually different. Nobles can interfere during the manufacturing and distribution of androids. There have been a lot of cases where androids were bought out by money and power, most times both. Additionally, he doesn't know how this info will help, but Barbara is actually sponsored by the Castoria family. Luca closes the call after this. He's glad that he has this info, but it completely destroys the idea he had in mind. If he could just torture Barbara for the information, things would not be so hard. But he needs to do all this tiring work. Guess he just has to talk with Giselle soon enough. The next day he goes to the workshop, where he is quite surprised to see nobles actually working. They are still competitive. They are probably trying to prove their worth to their own families. Ile told him that the useless nobles are treated like lower-class citizens, but he sees none here. Luca's gaze turns to Giselle, who's working pretty hard. Not bad for someone he wanted to throw out before. After finishing her work, she asks Luca what he wants, but he tells Giselle he only wanted to see her, making her spit out what she was drinking. She asks if he's fully gone insane, but Luca notes she was the one who said that his mind was damaged. Giselle doesn't have time for him, so he should get to the point already. Luca looks around and tells her that from now on, she should not hide anything from him. He has officially been requested to assist in the investigation, so she can't refuse. Giselle doesn't like to say this, but he should not forget who her father is. Luca tells her he doesn't care. He found out her family is sponsoring Barbara. Is that why she wants to get her out of the academy, perhaps? Also, the chief centurion could care less about such things. Giselle reasons that being the second victim of her curse is enough reason to hate her. They were friends until then. Luca finds that weird. If they were friends, why did she not try to stop the curse? Giselle just says that she wasn't close to her. So what would have been the point? Luca tells her that the security forces see the outburst of the android incident as clear ill intent, and now she's the top suspect. Giselle becomes furious. How can it be so when she was a victim too? Luca suggests that this is a common tactic for the culprit of a crime to hide themselves as a victim, and she has all the tools needed to do it. Family, knowledge, and ability. Giselle can't believe this. She can't believe him, but she will warn him to let go of this now. Luca advises her to calm down. He doesn't actually suspect her, so if she knows anything, she better tell him now. Suddenly someone appears at the door, surprising even Luca. It's Barba, who is actually looking for Luca. He wasn't where he usually sits, so she was worried. Luca is now in high alert. How did she locate him, and how couldn't he sense her coming? Now he sees it too, her rather cheery attitude even though she's being bullied, and in front of Giselle, who is supposed to be orchestrating the charade. He only needs 10 minutes. He will break her bones and fingers. He will get all the information he would ever need. His bloodlust intensifies. His want to strike her becomes a main priority, but he tells her to drop the dance smile, as she's creepy. Barbara begins crying, as she likes him. He's her hero. They should just talk about this, as it's a misunderstanding. Luca grabs a metal chair and throws it at her with all of his might, making even Giselle spooked. Up until now, he was just looking for ways to kill boredom, but in more, she took him for a fucking fool. Barbara continues to shake, but her true personality swiftly surfaces. She really doesn't know what he's talking about. Her expression makes Giselle freeze completely, and Barbara walks past her, leaving the food there in case they want to enjoy it later. With that she walks away, but not before grabbing Giselle, as it's truly nice to see her. She leaves Giselle quivering as she walks away. Luca finally knows the real culprit, the relationship with the innocent. It was all her. He calls Giselle, but she doesn't want anything to do with him anymore. She begs him to spend his time here quietly and go back once he's done. After this incident, Giselle continues to avoid Luca. He actually reported everything to the chief centurion, believing that he has grown outside his level of authority. However, he actually left it to him. He believed that whatever judgment he came up with was correct. Luca doesn't get it. The Imperial Guard would instantly solve this case with a few slashes or bullets. Why does he have to do this, especially when his daughter is involved? Well, his duty as an Imperial Guard trainee is to follow the directions of the higher-ups. No matter what, they are painting a picture much bigger than him, but this is still a pain. It's pretty clear now that Barbara is the culprit. However, someone from the lower sectors cannot mess with the androids. So how did Barbara do it? He thinks on everything, including her interactions, and eventually forms an idea. If this is correct, it will be a pain to deal with. But he has to get in contact with Giselle first, which seems impossible now. Suddenly Enrico appears, asking if Giselle said something nice about him. Luca has just found out how to contact her. He makes Enrico confess to Giselle, who's just too blunt with him. She's not interested in the slightest. In fact, he makes her comfortable since he follows her around. With his dreams shattered, Enrico runs away so fast not even mechanized legs could give him that speed. Luca decides to reveal himself. Giselle already expecting for this to be the case, but she has had enough, so she will tell her father about it. Luca tells her that it won't work. He has already reported her involvement. Giselle becomes frightened, and immediately asks how much he revealed, but Luca has no reason to tell her. Giselle can't believe it. Her family standing, her entire reputation, everything she has worked for, gone in mere minutes. She grabs Luca again. This is all his damn fault. If he never came, this wouldn't have happened. Luca tells her that it's not too late. If she spills everything, he can help her. Even if a trainee, he is still going to join her family. Giselle asks what he means, but Luca tells her to think. Is it not strange how someone of her status is acting as his guide? It's embarrassing to say, but he's a genius that only appears once in a blue moon. He even has a Medal of Honor. The chief centurion also thinks favorably of him, so his influence would help her family guide a bit. No matter what problems from now on, he will support her. He has a higher chance of being adopted if this case is solved well, so they should help each other, as they are both to benefit from this. Giselle's mind fails to gather. Her body gives out, forcing Luca to grab her. With a reluctant tone, she explains that she controlled the androids. She created Barbara's curse. They both sit down, and Giselle goes further. Barbara was her best friend, not just someone she knew, but someone she could trust. 3 years ago she was curious about who their family was sponsoring. That was when she met Barbara, and she seemed quite nice at the time. The start of the downward spiral was the jealousy. A boy approached Barbara. She was popular due to her personality, but she hated this. She did not want to lose her friend to a guy, so she wanted to mess with him. That's why she made a robot disguised as an android. Luca knows the rest of the story. Giselle placed a recording in the robot, ordering the boy to get away from Barbara, and made it chase him at night. Unfortunately, this rather petty prank turned into dire consequences, as the boy tripped and injured his head severely. This forced him to quit the academy, and she threw the robot out. But as someone got hurt, everyone involved was investigated. She explains that Barbara found out this was her doing, as she would often assemble robots in front of her. That's when she gave her an option. If she became a victim, she would not be suspected. That's why she made herself a victim, like he suggested. She just placed a chip Barbara gave her in the android, and it immediately began to chase her, giving her the title of second victim. After that, Barbara started acting weird. She made strange demands and told her to socially isolate her, and that victims were regularly needed. Luca can see how she was trapped. Barbara tricked her into escalating something that could have been resolved with just a few words, so that Giselle could be her loyal puppet. Suddenly, tons of messages appear in front of Giselle. Barbara has found out that she told their secret to a guy. She really is a traitor. Luca notices this. But how did she hack into such a high-security device? His instincts kick off. There's definitely something weird going on. And sure enough, an android is looking at them, its muzzle aimed at Giselle. Before she gets shot, Luca gets in the way and takes the brunt of it, putting Giselle behind cover. He rips off his jacket and makes a tourniquet, which will only temporarily stop the bleeding. That gunshot was from an attack drone. He can take care of one easily, but this could worsen his wounds, and all that he has now is a pocket knife. Since it has a silencer, nobody will come and help. This is the last drop. After he's done with Barbara, forensics will not be able to find out who she is from her mangled appearance.